Greetings. This is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. Today is a wonderful Tuesday, quite possibly the best Tuesday in history. Why? Because you're alive and you're smarter, stronger, healthier, wiser in many ways. Maybe not in ways that you would agree with, but I'm sure that there's something you can be grateful about today that maybe you weren't so much grateful about yesterday. In any case, I'm extremely grateful today that I have the level of understanding and the level of confidence to approach the material that I'm currently approaching, namely Kabbalah. Kabbalah has always been seen as a very mysterious, mystical, and powerful system of understanding information. Kabbalah is indeed a system. It's a system that transcends systems. And just like what we learned from the first two chapters, Kabbalah can be used as what Dion Fortune calls a filing cabinet, which is something that you can organize and arrange your understandings of the occult, whether it's extremely deep information that deals with the deep unconscious and the archetypes and things that we don't obviously experience on a day to day basis, and also the very superficial things, right? Like the weather and dealing with other people, other animals. Understand that everything in existence is connected, deeply connected, intricately connected. And if you're unaware of that connection, then of course you're going to see life as something scary, as something separated, a challenge, a war, a struggle, a battle, something that is very stressful. But life doesn't have to be stressful. Guess what? You don't have to suffer. You don't have to suffer. You don't have to suffer. A lot of this deals with the choice, even if the choice is unconscious, even if the choice is subliminal. So, with that being said, a massive part of having success in life deals with what we call shadow work. And shadow work is simply learning how to understand, navigate, and harmonize these aspects of the self, of the personality, of the mind, of the soul, of the body that are typically ignored. Because I have to break it to you, a massive part of your existence is unconscious. A massive part of your existence is unconscious. Just think about it. What do you really control about this human body of yours? What do you really control? Do you control your hunger? Do you control your blinking, your breathing? Do you control how fast your hair grows? Do you control the moisture in your skin? Do you control what other people do? Do you control the time, right? Do you even control your thoughts and what you think about? A lot of people have trouble controlling even what they think about. Most people are victims of habits and patterns. So, again, understanding these habits and the patterns that build your reality and build who you are, this will help you to navigate through life a lot easier. So, understanding Kabbalah allows us a framework and a system for putting these understandings into place. So, without further ado, we're going to continue and get into chapters 3, 4, and 5. So, I hope everyone is having a great day. Go ahead and hit that like button if you have not already, because YouTube uses that as a counter for engagement, meaning that this content is watched and appreciated by people who watch it. So, hit the like button. Society Ejects, peace, my friend. Mariah Magdalene, greetings, greetings. Sly, what's up? Living in the zone, welcome, welcome. Naturally natured, great to see you. Andy Smith, what's up, my brother from across the ocean? Chris Perez, hello, hello. Laser Beam, peace, peace. Cosmic Chlorophyll, finally got my Naga Serpent book, Sunshine Chick. Wonderful to see you. Let's go. I'm going to take Harley's squeaky toy for a minute so it doesn't disturb my reading. Perfect. The dog would like to squeak, but she'll have to rest for a moment. Okay, so let's get right to it. Turn this camera around. I am Onyx Soul. Peace and welcome. So yesterday we did the introduction and the first two chapters. And if you didn't catch that video, it was about 2 hours and 40 minutes long. We'll possibly go about that long tonight as well. So the chapters we're going over is 3, 4, and 5. 3, the method of Kabbalah. 4, the unwritten Kabbalah. And 5, negative existence. And that's going to be interesting because we know that negative existence is dealing with the 3 negative veils which exist beyond the tree itself. And the negative veils deal more with what we know of as Purusha, or the soul, more so than the rest of the tree. The rest of the tree from Kether on downwards is specifically the study of what we know of as Prakriti, or the study of Mother Nature, or existence, or manifestation, Malkuth, etc. So we're going to deal with the method, the unwritten Kabbalah, and negative existence. Hopefully you have this book by now because I've been talking about it for an extremely long time. If you don't have it, then I assume that you're kind of new to this channel, which is fine. But if you're not new to this channel and you don't have this book, I've got to ask, what are you doing? Okay, chapter 3, the method of Kabbalah. Speaking of the method of the Kabbalah, one of the ancient rabbis says that an angel coming down to earth would have to take on human form in order to converse with men. The curious symbol-based system known to us as the Tree of Life is an attempt to reduce the diagrammatic form every force and factor in the manifested universe and the soul of man. The curious symbol system known to us as the Tree of Life, the symbol system, is an attempt to reduce to diagrammatic form every force and factor in the manifested universe and the soul of man. So we're dealing with two factors here, the manifested universe and the soul of man. In other words, Prakriti and Purusha, right? And what the Tree of Life is doing, it's a symbol system that is attempting to reduce the manifested universe and the soul of man. We're trying to reduce it into a diagrammatic form, right? We're trying to reduce it into a diagram, right? So to correlate them one to another and reveal them spread out as on a map so that the relative positions of each unit can be seen and the relations between them traced. In brief, the Tree of Life is a compendium of science, psychology, philosophy, and theology. So again, like I mentioned earlier, this is a lot like a filing cabinet where you're able to place all experience and knowledge into its appropriate areas, right? To structure it out so it's not random and just information floating everywhere, right? So again, instead of just taking the soul and nature, what she's actually doing here is explaining how if you were to just take those two pieces of soul and nature and stretch them out, you're going to find that there's 32 aspects at least of distinguished character, of distinguished force and form. And they all relate and connect to each other, almost like the synapses in the mind, or in the human brain, I should say. But then again, do we really know if the synapses in the brain are objective or subjective? Could the synapses of the mind be a lot like how computer programs are structured and scripted, where this leads to this and this and this? Does the brain really look like that when you zoom into it? I don't know. I don't have a microscope. But I do know that a lot of times things that are objective have to be described subjectively, like atoms and calories, right? You've never seen a calorie before, but it's a concept. Yeah, Micah, peace, peace. Al Dickey, good evening. Two, the student of the Kabbalah goes to work in exactly the opposite way to the student of natural science. The latter builds up synthetic concepts. The former analyzes abstract concepts. It's kind of like what I just said. The student of natural science, they build up synthetic concepts, right? The students of Kabbalah analyzes abstract concepts. It goes without saying, however, that before a concept can be analyzed, it must first be assembled, right? Before it can be analyzed, it first must be assembled. So there's no way that you can go about learning this kind of information if it isn't put into some kind of order, some kind of structure, right? Otherwise, guessing and pretending that you know what you're talking about. So this is the usefulness of the Kabbalah, because it gives you a structure to put these abstract experiences into the proper place. Someone must have thought out the principles that are resumed in the symbol, which is the object of meditation of the Kabbalist. Who then were the first Kabbalists who built up the whole scheme? The rabbis are unanimous upon this point. They were angels. In other words, it was beings of another order of creation than humanity who gave the chosen people their Kabbalah. Extraterrestrial science, right? 3. To the modern mind, this may seem absurd. This may seem as an absurd a statement as the doctrine that babies are found under gooseberry bushes. But if we study the many mystical systems of comparative religion, we find that all the great Illuminati are in agreement upon this point. All men and women who have had practical experience of the spiritual life tell us that they are taught by divine beings. We shall be very foolish if we altogether disregard such a cloud of witnesses, especially those of us who have never had any personal experience of the higher states of consciousness. Right? So of course, a person who has never had any kind of experience with anything that is beyond the five senses will look at these type of experiences as imaginary, fictionary, false. But as they say, if you know, you know. And if you don't know, it's obvious. Okay, so number 4. There are some psychologists who will tell us that the angels of the Kabbalists and the gods and Manus of other systems are our own repressed complexes. Now here's where we get into the unconscious mind, right? Because I've been talking about shadow work a lot. And on one hand, hopefully someone in the chat can Google the quote where it says, all technology that isn't understood or something is considered as magic. Somebody get that quote for me so I can say it right. But honestly, if you don't understand what's going on, then of course magic is just hocus pocus and belief, and it's just, oh, anything goes. But what you find, like I said in the beginning, is that there are actually structured systems that are already in place, and most of us kind of just stumble upon them. And if you just stumble upon it and don't really study it, then the results that you have are mixed. Sometimes you get a really solid manifestation, sometimes nothing ever happens. And that's usually because you don't truly understand the system that's at play. But what I've understood here about studying the unconscious mind and the shadow is that a lot of these things we're dealing with spirits and chakras and memories and all these different things, they're literally aspects of the unconscious mind. Remember how Bobby Hemmett and even Aleister Crowley used to talk about how the Goetia are actually part of your subconscious mind. Well, now it starts to make sense, doesn't it? Because they are representatives, they are symbols of aspects of the collective unconscious. So it's not that the Goetia are a particularly special group of entities. Really, all spirits represent the unconscious mind. Nico Ajna says, happy to be here to get this knowledge. Thanks, Travis, for sharing. I am grateful. I appreciate you, Nico. Sirius Suit 888. Peace, Malik. Laura, welcome, welcome. I knew you'd make it. Laura says, hey fam, many blessings on this fabulous study day. Aldiki says, here it is again. Wow, in the Quran, the story of Hod says it was angels came down and taught the town magic, and some took it and destroyed themselves while others used it wisely. Is it called the story of Hod? If it is, because what we will learn in this book is that Hod is actually has a secret relationship with Chesed. And Chesed is the area of the ascended masters of higher intelligence. And it is through the secret pathway that students of the occult receive direct information from these ascended masters. It's pretty interesting if that chapter is actually called the story of Hod. In the Quran, no less. Sunshine Chick, thank you so much. The quote is, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. I should memorize that. Atropa, peace, peace. Okay, so Andy Smith, you are correct. It is from Arthur C. Clarke. Nightcore Elite Gaming, peace, peace. DRW ISIS, welcome. Okay, let's keep going. So she says, there are some psychologists who will tell us that the angels of the Kabbalists and the God and Manus of other systems are our own repressed complexes. There are others with less limited outlook who will tell us that these divine beings are the latent capacities of our own higher selves. To the devotional mystic, this is not a point of any great moment. He gets his result, and that is all he cares about. But the philosophical mystic, in other words, the occultist, thinks the matter out and arrives at certain conclusions. These conclusions, however, can only be understood when we know what we mean by reality and have a clear line of demarcation between the subjective and the objective. I'll read that again because it's highlighted and it's worth remembering. These conclusions, however, can only be understood when we know what we mean, right? You could stop it right there. Can only be understood when we know what we mean by reality and have a clear line of demarcation between the subjective and objective. You've got to understand the difference between subjective things and objective things. Otherwise, we get very wrapped up in this whole woo-woo type of belief system. Anyone who is trained in philosophical method knows that this is asking a good deal. And it isn't exactly so easy to do that. Number 5, the Indian schools of metaphysics. The Indian schools of metaphysics have most elaborate and intricate systems of philosophy which attempt to define these ideas and render them thinkable. That's the great benefit of yoga and Samkhya, is that they're able to take very abstract philosophical ideas and make them understandable to the common person. Because the yogis and the advanced occultists who deal with this information, they have a highly refined mind due to practice, due to study, and due to karma. The average person doesn't have a refined mind like that, so this type of information, it isn't really appealing and it doesn't make much sense. But what she says here is that the Indian schools of metaphysics have most elaborate and intricate systems of philosophy, like Samkhya, which attempt to define these ideas and render them thinkable. And Though generations of seers have given their lives to the task, the concepts still remain so abstract that it is only after a long course of discipline, called yoga in the East, that the mind is able to apprehend them all. So even though a lot of work has been done to break down Samkhya, right? We've even got this nice little chart here. A lot of work has been done to break this down. It's still extremely complex to the average person to understand. So count yourselves lucky that we're able to actually dig through this information. Scott Russell says, hey, let me grab a book right quick because these books are hard to read. Yes, sir. And that's why we're breaking it down right here on this one-of-a-kind, fantastic YouTube channel. Greetings, Hollow Vegeta. Hollow Vegeta says, apparently there's a Norse god, Hodr, also Hod. I found Hud was a prophet in Islam. Robin Hood, a likely correlation. Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Caesar, peace. Alora says, amazing. The yogas are in everything. Yes, they are. Nuru, welcome, welcome. Nightcore Elite Gaming says, yoga, union, the chemical reality. The chemical world is conscious and alive. Cosmic Chlorophyll says, today is International Yoga Day. Beautiful. Every day is yoga day. Yoga, 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 yoga. 6. The Kabbalist goes to work in a different way. He does not attempt to make the mind rise up on the wings of metaphysics into a rarefied air of abstract reality. He formulates a concrete symbol that the eye can see and lets it represent the abstract reality that no untrained human mind can grasp. So here's the difference between these two things. She says that the Indian student of metaphysics, right, these yogis and these students, they refine their minds, right? They refine their level of understanding so high, they increase their capacity to receive and to understand, that they're able to grab a hold of these complex concepts and break them down so that the common person can understand it. Now, the Kabbalists, they do it differently, right? The Kabbalist doesn't necessarily refine their mind, although I would highly recommend doing that if you can. She says that the Kabbalist actually creates concrete symbols, right? A concrete symbol that the eye can see. And the Kabbalist lets that symbol represent the abstract. So in other words, while the yogi elevates himself to reach this, the Kabbalist actually brings it down. You see that? That's why we work so much with symbols. I mean, if you know what you're doing. And even if you don't know what you're doing, it's the same process. But when you do understand what you're doing, you can have consistent results. Useless Familiar, welcome. Useless Familiar says, glad I can catch the stream this time. Oh yeah. Cosmic Chlorophyll says, yeah, I'm glad we read the other books first. Yes, ma'am. And that was the intention, to help this go down a lot smoother. Nate D says, first time in this study, and I haven't dived into this book fully yet, so this is appreciated. Oh yeah, page 14 if you have the physical copy. Smooth Shaddai, peace. Number 7, it is exactly the same principle as algebra. Let x represent the unknown quantity, let y represent the half of x, and let z represent something we know. If we begin to experiment with y to find out its relation to z, and in what proportions, it soon ceases to be entirely unknown. We've learned something about it at any rate about it. We have learned something at any rate about it. And if we are sufficiently skillful, we may in the end be able to express in terms of z, and then we shall begin to understand x. Did you get that? So basically, she's explaining that this can be understood just like algebra, right? And she says that you can let X represent the unknown quantity, right? We're trying to find all about X, say Purusha, or, the universe in total. And then she says that Y represents a half of X, right? Or what's a good way to put that? Should probably do it in decimals. Y equals half of X, right? And of course she says Z represents something that we know. Right, so we got something that we know, and we have something that we absolutely don't know. And then we have half of that. Now, what we've learned so far from the yoga books is that when you're dealing with threes, we're dealing with the gunas. So I would even say sattva, rajas, and tamas. Tamas being solidified, being anchored, being something that can be experienced with the objective five senses. Right, so we got this smiley face representing something in general that we do know for a fact. And on the polar extreme, we've got something that we absolutely do not know. But here, this represents a quantity. This represents half of what we do not know. So what she's saying here is that if we begin to experiment with Y, right, the half of X, if we begin to experiment with Y to find out its relation to Z, right, the half of the mystery, but there's something about it that relates to the half of something we do know. So we start to learn something. We start to gather clues. We start to gather information. We start to gather intel. And then we start to learn that there's proportions, that there's different levels of a thing. But in any case, instead of being completely ignorant and oblivious, now we're starting to gain information and we're increasing our knowledge. We're starting to increase our understanding of X. And eventually, if we continue down this path of relating what we do know to pieces of what we don't know, we'll start to understand this. So say, for example, what you do know is that, the sun comes up in the day, the moon goes down at night, and you know that there's certain animals that come out at night and bugs, and, the weather changes, da-da-da-da-da. But what you don't know is how all this relates to what we call God and spirituality, right? So if you look at the Y, which is half of X, this is where we start studying these books or studying these abstract concepts. So we start understanding the symbolic nature of things, right? And through understanding the symbolic nature of the things that we do know and finding out, say, what's behind what we do know, that gives us a greater glimpse into what we don't know. So this whole study and consistent practice, even though we're not finding out exactly everything, you're getting more and more each and every day. Your awareness and your knowledge is expanding. So this is the same thing that's happening with Kabbalah. Using the symbols of the Tree of Life and learning how to fill up our filing cabinets with data and information and experience, we start to get more and more understanding of the unknown through our daily study. Let me know if that makes sense. Society Eject says, yo, Trav, you can't make this shit up. LOL, yoga is in every spiritual system. I tried to tell him, I really did. But people only listen halfway. All good. Nightcore Elite Gaming says, focusing on the symbol tunes you into a certain mode of intelligence. But these same intelligences make manifest in all chemical vibratory reality and all of the other living creatures. Right, because everything tangible and manifest is a representation of something that is unmanifest. So studying the manifest only points you to the unmanifest. But the manifest is, an afterthought. Thank you, Cosmic Chlorophyll. Yeah, that's good, Alora. Alora says, so perhaps these entities that people try to evoke are only accessible and perceivable according to an individual's awareness. So that's why there are called aspects of the self rather than total divinity. Yes, ma'am, that's a really good point. Alora continues, because the only thing that manifests is what a person can perceive. Right? Right. Our understanding of life has a lot to do with the filters that we place on our understanding. There's a lot of stuff that we ignore and avoid and delete because it doesn't fit with the frame of reality that we set for ourselves already. And a lot of these things are called cognitive biases, right? There's a cognitive bias for all types of understandings. For example, there's a cognitive bias that are called angel halo and devil horns. And what that means is if you're used to somebody being a good person, it doesn't matter if they do something bad. If you've got that angel cognitive bias on them, you're going to ignore the bad thing that they've done and continue to believe that they're a good person. Now, the devil horns cognitive bias, what that means is that if there's somebody in your head that you already labeled as a bad person or evil person, it doesn't matter what they do, right? They could donate $1 million to charity. They can do all kind of good things. But because you have that cognitive bias filter, you're going to find some reason or some excuse to demonize them. So most people, we all see life in filters. But if you're unaware of these filters, then, you're subject to your emotions and only your emotions. So yeah, that is a good point, Alora. You said that the only thing that manifests is what a person can perceive. And in NLP, we know that all of life goes through three major filters: deletion, distortion, and generalization. So there's a whole lot going on in the unconscious mind that most people will never realize. Sakura Key Nexus, peace, peace, welcome, welcome. Andy Smith says, believing is seeing. Absolutely. Believing is seeing. You should look up cognitive biases. I got this nice deck of cards that has all 21 cognitive biases on it. Sunshine Chick says, I just purchased a new book that discusses the same concepts. Vital Lies, Simple Truths. I'm going to have to write that down. If you can, Sunshine Chick, send me the link, the Amazon link to my inbox. That way I can check it out. Sakura Key Nexus, it's deletions, distortions, and generalizations. A lot of information on that. You can look that up as well. Let's see. All right, let's continue with this book. So much information. 8. There are a great many symbols which are used as objects of meditation. The cross in Christendom, the god forms of the Egyptian system, phallic symbols in other faiths. These symbols are used by the uninitiated as a means of concentrating the mind and introducing into it certain thoughts, calling up certain associated ideas, and stimulating certain feelings. Those of us who study hypnosis and NLP understand that we're talking about states here. Remember, memory is state dependent, right? Memory is not temporary, and memory is not something that goes away. Memory is state dependent. So what that means is, depending on what state you're in, emotionally, physically, mentally, the experiences that you have are stored there. So for example, if you're depressed, what happens in your life, the memories that you have of being depressed, say you get out of that depression. If you go back into that depression, you're going to start remembering all the other times that you're depressed. So that's what makes depression so hard to get out of, because the longer that you're in it, the more you remember the feeling, and the more that you find other things to be depressed about. Likewise, when you're happy and excited, you'll start to remember other memories of being just that happy and excited. So one of the things that we learn in psychology is that when something happened to you traumatizing as a child, it can't be solved fully as an adult. You have to go back as a child to solve it. And what I mean by that is you don't necessarily have to go under hypnosis, but the 7-year-old still exists in your memory. The 7-year-old saw the world in a certain way. So whenever that traumatic experience happened, the 7-year-old stored that information with 7-year-old language. You get what I'm saying? So what often happens is we develop phobias or fears or complexes around what that 7-year-old experienced. For example, I was watching a case about how there's a woman who could not sleep with the lights off. She had to have the lights on. And what was found through working with her was that when she was very young, one of the people who were taking care of her did something pretty bad to her. But in her memory, what she remembers was the last thing she had control of was turning on or off the light switch. So she kind of, that experience froze in that moment, right? And the healing that had to be done was to have her regress at that moment to be able to have the power to turn the light on and the light back off. And there's a lot more to it, but basically what I'm saying is the things that happen to us throughout our lives, they're stored emotionally based on what age you were, the language that you had at that time, and your belief systems at that time. So if your belief systems change, in order to fix the issues of the past, you still have to go back to that old belief system and correct it in that way. Let me know if I explained that well or not. Society Eject says yes, and sometimes we create a different narrative story and it never happened that way. That too. That's why I'm not too concerned with how certain thoughts and beliefs developed. It's more important to reframe them into something useful. Because if you believe that you're cursed because of something that happened in your past life, if that's what you believe, it's going to be very difficult for me to tell you, no, that's not real, because you believe it on an emotional level. The best thing I can do is to allow you to take that same belief system and reassemble it. Like, imagine that your belief is like Legos, right? You got a red block up here and a blue block and a yellow block. Well, you've solidified that in your mind. So I can't take it apart. But what I can do is rearrange it to make it work for you. And if it's rearranged, you'll be able to take it apart yourself later on. I think that's what makes my process of shadow work differently than some of the things I've seen online. But yeah, we're getting off topic here. Let's keep going. Creon the King, Greece. Peace and greetings, not Greece. Creon the King says, heavy spitter. Every time I tap in, you're going hard, bro. 100. Okay. So these symbols are used by the uninitiated as a means of concentrating the mind and introducing into it certain thoughts, calling up certain associated ideas, and stimulating certain feelings. Right? This is how we work with sigils as well. These symbols are meant to put you into a new state. We're traveling through different states all the time. Richard Bandler says we're in a trance 24/7. Every given moment you're in a trance. Now it's a different trance depending on what's happening. You're in a trance when you open the fridge. You're in a trance when you're driving to work. You're in a trance when you're watching Netflix. You're in a trance right now watching my YouTube channel. I'm in a trance as I'm reading this book. But depending on what trance you're in, like I said, the trance can also be called a state. Memory is state dependent. This is why this is so important. Depending on what trance you're in, that's where the memory is stored. So if you never go back to a certain trance, there's a very high likelihood that you won't remember what's in that trance. Right? So if you have a trance of being successful and feeling powerful, feeling confident, feeling on top of the world, you're learning and doing things differently. But if you leave that state of mind and you never go back to feeling confident, successful, and powerful, you're going to start to forget what that feels like. You're going to start to forget what you learned in that state, and it'll be more difficult to get back to it. So what she's saying here is we use symbols to put ourselves into specific states, specific trances, specific states of mind, basically. And please get it out of your head that trance is a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It's just describing what state of consciousness you're in. He uses it as an algebra by means of which he will read the secrets of unknown potencies. In other words, he uses the symbol as a means of guiding thought out into the unseen and incomprehensible. So again, like she said, we use this system as like a type of algebra. We take what we do know to figure out what we don't know. And the symbols and the states of mind, of consciousness that are associated with those symbols, that's what helps us to figure out what we don't know. So like she says here, we use the symbol as a means of guiding thought into the unseen and incomprehensible. If it's unseen and incomprehensible, you can't even begin to think about it, right? Imagine all the things you don't know. You can't do it because it's incomprehensible. But if you have certain symbols in place that can help you navigate into the unseen, this is how we figure this stuff out. That's why the occult is so full of different symbols. And no symbol in itself is evil, right? How many people remember being scared of the Baphomet, or scared of an upside down star pentagram, or scared of an eye inside of a pyramid? These are just pictures and symbols, but look at the state of mind that it puts you in when you saw it, right? If you've ever been scared of a pentagram or scared of the Baphomet, that was a state of mind that it put you in. Now check this out. Through all your YouTube and book reading, you didn't delete that feeling, you just reframed it. Now instead of being afraid of the pentagram, instead of being afraid of Baphomet, instead of being afraid of an eyeball in a pyramid, you've reframed that to use it to empower yourself, hopefully. So see how easy that process and how effective that process is? We're not here to destroy and delete. We're here to reframe and reprogram to make reality work for you. Nothing is created or destroyed, including thoughts and feelings. Nothing is created or destroyed. It's just changed into a different state. So look at the first tarot card, the magician, and he's got all his tools laid out on the table, right? It's all about rearranging and becoming a master at rearranging your experience. If you have the power to rearrange your experience, you have the power to do anything. Most people don't believe that they have the power to change their lives because they don't understand how to rearrange their experience. We grow natural. Peace. Welcome back. The dad says gangster shit. Interesting. I've got this armband here. Fatherhood is gangster. And your name is the dad. And you said gangster shit. Mariah Magdalene says, I used to be scared of that symbolism. Right. Keyword used to. How do you feel about it now, Mariah? Atropa says, I was never afraid of these things. I get your analogy, though. Well, you are badass. Living in the Zone says, yep, conspiracy theories is what made me curious to study what the occult really is, instead of ignorantly being scared of something not understood. Right. Caesar says, everyone on here is awesome. Much love. Enjoy life every day. I agree. Number 9. All right, so he uses the symbol system as a means of guiding thought out into the unseen and incomprehensible. We can't just imagine what we don't know. We use symbols to help us figure that stuff out. Number 9. And how does he do this? He does it by using a composite symbol, a symbol which is which is an unattached unit, would not serve his purpose. In contemplating such a composite symbol as the tree of life, he observes that there are definite relations between its parts. Definite relations between its parts. What I've been saying for the past 6 months is that it's about the relationships. It's not just about the individual aspects of the tree, it's about the relationships, because everything is connected. And when you understand the relationships, you can start to see that instead of just believing it. There are some parts of which he knows something. There are others of which he can intuit something, or more crudely, make a guess, reasoning from first principles. The mind leaps from one known to another known, and in so doing, traverses certain distances, right? The mind leaps from one known to another known, and in so doing, traverses certain distances. Metaphorically speaking, it is like a traveler in the desert who knows the situation of two oases and making a forced march in between them. He would never have dared to push out into the desert from the first oasis if he had not known the location of the second. But at the end of his journey, he not only knows much more about the characteristics of the second oasis, but he has also observed the country lying between them. So check that out. You got this guy in the desert, and he knows that there are two oases, and he makes it to the first one. Now, if he didn't truly believe and have some type of proof that the second oasis existed, he wouldn't risk his life by traveling out to it. Because look, there's a vast desert in between that he could die. So people who make progress don't just jump to conclusions for no reason. There has to be something there that allows you to believe it's real. And what happens is this traveler, when he makes it to that second oasis, not only does he confirm his belief with evidence, but he also comes into an awareness of what's in between the first oasis and the new oasis. So not only did he learn about what he was looking for, he also learned a bunch of stuff that he didn't know. Likewise, when you're working with sigils and symbols and entities and spirits and chakras and anything to do with any of this stuff, if you're just going out on blind belief, blind faith, you're not going to gather much intel, because first of all, your foundation isn't solid. But if you're working with this stuff and you know that something about it is real, the more that you study and dig for evidence, you're going to find a lot of things that you didn't even think about in the first place. And that doesn't just go for spiritual stuff, that goes for life in general. If you just stay in the little box of things you know, you're not going to learn very much. But if you venture out, if you make an educated guess and start to gather information on it, if you continue in that direction, you're going to change your life, because you'll be able to widen your frame. You'll be able to widen your capacity to receive. So, thus, making forced marches from oasis to oasis, backwards and forwards across the desert, he gradually explores it. Nevertheless, the desert is incapable of supporting life. Traveling back and forth between infinity, and most of that infinity is not suitable for life. But you wouldn't really know that unless you traveled it. This is when it becomes really easy to detect when somebody knows what they're talking about or doesn't. If you've done the traveling, if you've done the work yourself, it's extremely easy to see people who haven't done the work but are pretending like they've done. They don't know the desert. They don't know the location of the different oases. They're just guessing and pretending and repeating what they heard. Yamaika says it was full change to realize when I was pathologically lying. Yeah. Cool. Mariah says, I actually do find it empowering now, and I enjoy using the Baphomet symbolism and the god Pan. It's synonymous with Capricorn and Tarot, so I now embrace it. Excellent. Notice how you were able to change something that you were afraid of into something that gave you strength and confidence. The symbol didn't change, just your beliefs surrounding that symbol. You can't change the symbol, but you can change your beliefs surrounding the symbol. There's a lot of things in this world that we can't change, but the best thing you can do is change your beliefs around those things. Society Eject says this chapter is giving me Durana Darshan vibes. Yes. Aaron Sutherland says reshape the mind to reform the human condition. Perfect. Sanaya Stewart, peace, peace. We're on page 15 at this point, verse number 10 to be exact. Hope you're having a good evening. Okay. Number 10. So it is with the Kabbalistic system of notation. The things it renders are unthinkable, and yet the mind, tracking from symbol to symbol, manages to think about them. And although we have to be content to see in a glass darkly, yet we have every reason to hope that ultimately we shall see face to face and even as we are known. If anybody has access to Google, go ahead and find that Bible verse that she references here, because this is actually a Bible verse. Although we see in a glass darkly. Type in Bible verse, see in a glass darkly. That would help to make sense of what she said there. Hollow Vegeta says, I've thought that, so with enough training, any symbol can mean what you choose it to. That's right. But it starts with identifying what a symbol actually does mean to you. And the more that you start to see the similarities between all these different things, the more your understanding of reality expands. Andy Smith says the symbol with the symbol will lead you gnosis with enough meditation and contemplation, and then enable you to lead the symbol where you want. Yes. Thank you, Society Ejects. The verse is 1 Corinthians 13 and 12. For now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall know even as also I am known. That would go back to verse 7 of this very chapter where she talks about the X, the Y, and the Z. Seeing in the glass darkly, but then face to face. So I'll read that again. Although we have to be content to see in a glass darkly, yet we have every reason to hope that ultimately we shall see face to face, and even as we are known. That's why I love Dion Fortune. She's so clever. For the human mind grows by exercise. And that which was at first as unthinkable as mathematics to the child who cannot manage his sums finally comes within the range of our realization. By thinking about a thing, we build concepts of it. If you have this physical book, highlight that right there. By thinking about a thing, we build concepts of it. Which means all the concepts you have come from thinking about specific symbolic experiences. But that also means that you can change them by how you think about them. These are the keys to how to adjust your life. Nothing to do with any physical object, but it's all about how you believe reality, how you filter your beliefs about the world. Gotta do it. Alright, so I've just been informed that my battery is about to die, so I'm gonna grab my phone charger. Well, that could have been unfortunate. $55 viewers and 55 likes. If you haven't hit the like button already, please go ahead and do so. And then hopefully the YouTube fairy will bless you in your sleep and leave you $10 under your pillow. Lance Benefield, peace. Living in the Zone says, wow, we're seeing the true interpretation of the Bible. I see why I grew up in Christianity. If I didn't have that foundation, I wouldn't be able to understand this. Talk about full circle. Exactly. That's what we were saying. You know, it's not wise to throw away the teaching that you grew up with, right? It's not wise to throw away if you came up as a Christian or a Muslim or a Hebrew or whatever, because there's still those books, the holy books, were built on truth, the same type of truth that we're learning about now. The problem is, the problem that we have had with religion are the people that taught it to us, right? You don't have a problem with Christianity or with Jesus. You have a problem with the people in church who upset you or who hurt you. You can't possibly have a problem with Jesus or Christianity because it didn't do anything to you. But it's the people that taught it to you that you usually have a problem with. But all that same information that are in those holy books are still holy. You just have to be able to understand them correctly. Matthew Watson, peace and good evening. Stray Panther, peace, peace. Sly, thank you for that donation. I appreciate you. Number 11. It is said that thought grew out of language, not language out of thought. What words are to thought, symbols are to intuition. Let's think about that. It is said that thought grew out of language, not language out of thought. So thought grew out of language. What words are to thought, right? Because thought grows out of language, which is words. Words can be the seeds of thought, right? Symbols can be the seeds of intuition. Words can help to expand your thought, your thinking, right? You can only think about what you know, and you can only increase your knowledge through experience. A quick way is reading, right? So if language can help to expand your thinking, symbols can help to expand your intuition. Intuition isn't necessarily just something you're born with. Intuition can be developed and perfected and learned the more that you work with symbols. See how that works? What words are to thought, symbols are to intuition. Curious as it may seem, the symbol precedes the elucidation. Right? The symbol comes before the actual breakthrough, the actual download. Right? Listen, all of learning is unconscious. That is the truth. All of learning is unconscious. Even though we're reading this right now, studying it, and you're getting aha moments, the real learning is going to take place when you go to sleep and when you think about this information. Randomly, certain pieces are going to pop back up into your head. And if you think the light bulb moment that you're having now is bright, just wait till what you come up with a week from now or a month from now. Hollow Vegeta says they tried to get me to go to church the other day. Psych. I would go. I would go just to see if you can understand deeper. I did the sound and the video for a funeral a week ago or so, and I was able to enjoy the sermon, right? Because I had somewhat of a better understanding of how things work. church isn't necessarily bad if you go in there with a mature mind. Now, of course, if you go in there with the mind of a blind follower, then of course you're going to get a blind follower's experience. But if you go into a church as an occultist, you just may be able to download something very important. Because if the pastor, if the pastor is actually doing what he's supposed to do, he still represents a channel to the spirit, right? So if you go to church as an occultist and the pastor is actually on his stuff, you're still going to get a message. That might be something that you've never thought of. Hollow Vegeta says, do we really have to learn? I mean, I've been pondering, isn't all we got to do is remember? I mean, yeah, but you can't remember something if you don't have something to trigger that memory, right? I mean, test it out for yourself. Just sit in a room and don't do anything. Don't study, don't learn, don't do anything. Yet, from reading this information, certain thoughts are triggered. Memory is state dependent, remember? So if you're learning and you're studying, the last time you've done that was in school. If you're studying like this, you're pre-framing your awareness to look for something new to understand. That's why these light bulbs are going off, because you're looking for the light bulbs. Society Eject says, I went to church on Sunday for Father's Day. It was beautiful. I bet. Night Correlate Gaming says, the literal interpretation was reserved for the common folk. The practical Kabbalah was reserved for the occultists. Trying to remember the saying from modern Magick. Yeah, that's by Donald Craig, right? Sakura Key Nexus says, external remembering triggers internal soup. Yes, ma'am. Delicious. Aldiki says, my daughter just graduated from Catholic school and they had a mass before graduation and I had a very clear understanding of most that was going on. It is totally different now than me laughing before. Right. So the symbol precedes the elucidation, right? Before you have a download or a breakthrough or some massive understanding, before you have it, there's going to be some type of symbol that triggers it. So that goes for you too, Hollow Vegeta. Yes, you do have to learn. Yes, you do. Because it's that symbol that triggers the learning. Don't avoid work. Don't avoid it. Stray Panther says, lots of family spirits at my family church, over 100 years old. Yeah, there's a lot of history there, I bet. Sakura says, yes, ma'am. I'm externally male, Trav. Yeah, me too. I'm just going off the profile picture. That is why we declare that the Kabbalah is a growing system, not a historic monument. Remember that also. I highlighted this. Kabbalah is a growing system, meaning it's not finished. Look, y'all, what I'm doing on this channel, there's some new stuff coming out here. There's new stuff. As we go through this study, new things are being unearthed, right? And I have full confidence to be able to say that because Kabbalah is a growing system. And the more that you love her, appreciate her as she is, the more that she's going to reveal things that were not previously revealed. Even as Dion Fortune said in the previous chapters, the fundamentals remain the same, but the expressions change with the different age, the different culture, the different generation, right? So even through this channel and this book study, we're revealing things that have not been revealed before. And that's not me talking ego. That's just how this thing is. Kabbalah is a growing system. And if you understand Kabbalah and apply it through life, apply it appropriately, new things are being revealed. So it's not a historic monument. It's not like finished and done and that's all there is. This thing is completely evolving. There's a lot that we don't understand about Kabbalah yet. And there's a lot that will be understood through the lifetime of me and through this channel and through this community, right? Because it isn't even just me. There's a lot of you all who are coming through with breakthrough understandings of this thing. So much so. Hollow Vegeta says, okay, thumbs up. Oh no, Pops raised me to be autodidactic. Okay, awesome. DRW says, I don't want them telling me to eat and drink blood. Yuck. Yeah, so you can either not do it or you can actually reframe it to where it serves you, right? Remember, you at all times of life, you choose if you're living under someone else's frame or your frame, right? Even if you're tied up and kidnapped, at any time in life, you choose if you're living in someone else's frame or your frame, right? So if you're living under someone else's frame, that's you going to church and feeling like they're forcing you to eat and drink someone else's blood. They told you that's what that represents. If you know thyself, you'll understand that you can do whatever the hell you want, including not eating and drinking it, or reframing that symbolism so that it works for you. Society Eject says, I see there's a lot of new energy on your channel now, Trav. Yeah, and it's not stopping, man. There's still more to go. Stray Panther says, yes, Travis, the original building was one of the oldest black churches in North Carolina. My family graveyard is there too. The oldest tombstone I remember seeing was from 1848. Wow. Have you ever tried to go out there and make some type of communication or anything like that? Andy Smith says, this is the third time you've read this text live. 3 times the depth. Man. That's true. That's true. Night Course says, good book. The Book of Sacred Names by Jacobius G. Swart. Gotta go. Thank you for the lesson. Would love to get in touch sometime. Awesome possum. Matthew Watson says, dang, now the Jesus ritual makes you the real Lizard King, taking on the Christ energy like a snake, basking in the sun. Listen, I have come to learn to reframe every experience in my life. Every experience. Even if it normally would be considered as a bad thing or a painful thing. Think about this, man. We're talking about non-attachment. How the hell are you going to call yourself God and Goddess and, oh, I'm the leader of my reality, yet you're suffering from someone else's frame, right? Talking about we gotta fix it, we gotta fight back, we gotta, oh no, they doing this to us. Whose frame are you living in? Somebody gave you that frame, right? I heard talking about, oh, the GMO foods and they're doing this to us, we gotta. You're living in someone else's frame. That's not powerful, that's powerless, right? Reality is based on what you believe and how you believe. People that actually are members of my channel, follow my content and learn from me, these you can tell who they are because we immediately start to give up living in other people's fearful frames, right? Nobody who's been a part of my channel or a part of this community is out here talking about we gotta fight back, we gotta do this, that, and the third, and they killing us. No, none of us talk like that because we have a deeper understanding of how things actually work. We focus more energy on creating what we want than crying about what's been happening to someone else. You feel me? So if anybody's talking like that in the chats or the comments or whatever, it's a good sign that that person is probably brand new, at least to my content. But let's continue here. Kabbalah is a growing system, not a historic monument. There is more to be got out of the Kabbalistic symbols today than there was in the time of the old dispensations, because our mental content is richer in ideas. For that fact alone, it goes to show that the Kabbalah is consistently growing. Living in the Zone says we're victors, not victims. Right, right. I love that. I love that. Night Course says instead of using spirits to curse others, the majority of the time call upon those same spirits to bless yourself. Right. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And that's when your work is really going to transform. When you learn that it's not about fighting an invisible enemy, because the only enemy that you're fighting is yourself. And these parts of your shadow that have not been addressed. There ain't no we gotta fight back. There's no enemies. There are no enemies. The only enemy is your belief systems and you feeling like you're not in control. Like I said, even if you're tied up, duct taped, you control whose frame, right? That's how certain people are able to overcome. And you know what? Even if it's time to die, it's time to die. But even in your last moments, you can remain in control, right? In control of yourself, at least. It takes a level of strength to do that. Stray Panther says, yes, I went there with an intention to speak to my past on family one day. I had an EVP Spirit app on my phone and got some responses. Whoa. I heard my name several times. Man. Nicole Berkeley, good evening. Welcome. There's more to be got out of Kabbalistic systems today than there was in the time of old dispensation because our mental content is richer in ideas. How much more, for instance, does the sephirah Yesod, wherein work with the forces of growth and reproduction, mean to the biologist than to the ancient rabbi? Right? The force of Yesod, right? The ancient rabbi, yeah, it deals with growth and reproduction. And we learned from William G. Gray's Ladder of Lights that Yesod is where the archangel Gabriel has presidency over. And this is where we actually get our body for incarnation. So before you're born, the spirit travels back down through Yesod. And it is based on your karma and how you believe. That's going to determine what type of body and what type of reality you're going to be born into. So funny thing is, you can tell how non-spiritual these, people who are so focused on melanin and blackness actually are. All that talk about melanin and blackness and we gods and the black one was God, da 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 da. Yet you might not have even been black in your last life, right? You might not have even been incarnated into a melanated body in your last life, but you're out here talking about all this stuff. It's just hilarious. The more you start to break it down, you see that a lot of stuff is really just ego and not really spiritual at all. But I digress. Tree Marie, long time no see. Wonderful to see you. Sakura Nexus says Auschwitz concentration camp. The guy that wrote on it was powerful in mind, so his body was able to survive and give us a great book. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Non-attachment. If it's time to die, it's time to die. However, don't give up, right? You maintain your frame no matter what, because you don't know what's possible. If somebody in the Auschwitz concentration camp can maintain his frame and survive, you can maintain your frame through, oh no, where's the rent money gonna come from? Oh no, what am I gonna do without him? What am I gonna do without her? Oh no, right? Not to say one person's pain is greater or worse than another. What I'm illustrating is, regardless of the circumstance, there is no reason or excuse to give up. Because you don't have to, it's a choice. If you ain't got melanin, you ain't got no soul. Yet that person was born as a damn Chinese woman in the year 1972. Y'all got to stop all that shit. Straight Panther says, no joke. I feel like I was a dancer or stripper in one life, and in another life I had kids and I was a mother. I might be wrong, but no, I guarantee you were. We have no idea how many times that we've incarnated. If you ask Vivekananda, he says you've been don't even ask that question because you've been reincarnated so many times it will make you want to give up. So I'm thinking in the trillions, right? We gotta. All right, let's stay on topic because we got a lot to go. Do you guys mind me like breaking down every little line, or would you rather me just kind of read through a bit more? Because we've been here for an hour and 16, and we're only on the 11th verse. Let me know. Let me know. You want me to keep breaking it down in the same way, or should I speed up the pace, the cadence? Because I don't want to on too much if this is stuff that you guys clearly already understand. And I've done complete book reads, you know what I'm saying? And I've been on here for several hours. So we could also break it up, you know, but it's up to you guys, you know what I'm saying? I read this shit multiple times. Framestar says this is the third time I've gone through this on the YouTube channel. But I just let me know. Okay, a lot of people are saying page breakdowns, break it down. I like how it's going. I like the rhythm. No rush. Okay, cool. Does anybody disagree? Let me know if there's anybody who does not. Alora says maybe the whole section and then break it down if there are questions. Because it's a Tuesday night, and I know some of you guys are on the way out to the club, you know. Don't want to hold up your twerk sessions. Laserbeam says the breakdown is real, but I'm following either way it goes. Going up on a Tuesday. Society EJ says, I said, let's read the chapter and break it down after. Okay, all right, let's continue. So like she says, as time goes on further, our understanding is deeper of the Kabbalah than it could have possibly been in the past. Just like what she said here, the ancient rabbis, they didn't really know all the science behind genetics and all the stuff we know today. So their level of understanding of Yesod is different from our modern understanding of Yesod. Even though all of us, you know, we're always face deep in our cell phones and we're entertaining ourselves and we got all these creature comforts, even though we're, you know, really spoiled and somewhat entitled, even though we still have all this information at our fingertips, we still have a more comprehensive understanding of the world we live in. So when you take that to Kabbalah, you're going to have a deeper understanding of these things than the ancient ones did, right? That includes you. You learning this right now, you're going to have a more comprehensive grasp than some of the older people had hundreds of years ago, simply because of how far technology has revealed to us. I'm not going to say advanced because this is not the most advanced society that we've had, and this is not the most advanced technological forwardness that we've had, but what we do have is pretty deep. Naturally nature says enjoying the flow. This reminds me of my mind quells. Okay, all right. Everything that has to do with, let me go back one line based on what I just said. How much more, for instance, does the sephirah yod, wherein the forces of growth and reproduction, mean to the biologist than to the ancient rabbi? Yesod would mean more to the biologist than to the ancient rabbi. And how much more does Yesod mean to us now that we've read the Ladder of Lights, right? How much more does Yesod mean to us now that we've studied Samkhya and Yoga, right? Knowing that Yesod, here being called the storehouse of images, Chitta is called the storehouse of memory, right? What I'm learning is that Yesod is the Chitta. So it would make sense that you would start to gather a body in Yesod because that's where your memory imprint is, right? The imprint of your karma is going to start to form and develop a body at that level of existence. And I wonder, check this out. What if, those of you who know about the body of light exercise, what if working on and building a body of light in the Yesod plane can help you for the next incarnation? What if you're working on your next vessel? Things to think about. Everything that has to do with growth and reproduction is resumed in the sphere of the moon. But this sphere, as represented upon the tree of life, is set about with paths leading to other sephirah. Therefore, the biological Kabbalist knows that there must be certain definite relationships between the forces subsumed in Yesod and those represented by the symbols assigned to these paths. Brooding over these symbols, he gets glimpses of relationships that do not reveal themselves when the material aspect of things is considered. And when he comes to work these out in the material of his studies, he finds that therein are hidden important clues. And so upon the tree, one thing leads to another. Explanation of hidden causes arises out of the proportions and relations of the various individual symbols composing this mighty synthetic glyph. And when she talks about synthetic here, what she's talking about is synthesis, how different aspects blend together, right? That's what synthesis is. That's what synthetic means. So, brooding over these symbols, he gets glimpses of relationships that do not reveal themselves when the material aspect of things is considered. And just real quick, I'm going to pull up this right here. And she talked about the symbols around the paths regarding Yesod. Check this out. If you look at Yesod, look at the paths connected. You got temperance, you got the universe, you got the sun, and you got the star. We know that the star card has a little baby riding on a horse, right? The star card is a woman scooping out water from a river, pouring it onto the land and into the water. We know that temperance deals with this angel who's also standing on the water and the land, pouring water out. We got the universe, which is a woman or an androgynous being dancing in the midst of a wreath surrounded by the four angels of the four corners. Right? These are the four paths leading from Yesod. There is a connection between those symbols. So maybe something interesting for you to do if you're curious is to lay out the universe card, the sun card, temperance, and the star, and analyze Yesod. And if you're really serious, maybe collect the nines also and put them in the center. 9 of wands, 9 of swords, 9 of pentacles, 9 of cups. And try to use those symbols, because like what Dion Fortune said, this is what we're doing with these symbols. She said she's not going to tell you the process, but she is. She's doing it low key. Throughout this book, you got to listen to what she says. She's not going to tell you, this is what you have to do. No, she's just going to put it out there real subtle. I'm telling you, I love Dion Fortune. I love this book, and you will too if you pay attention. But that's just a little experiment I'm probably going to do once I wrap this up. Get these tarot cards out, the star, the sun, temperance, and the universe, and the 4 nines, and just meditate on them, right? And if you're like me, if you're an overachiever and a go-getter when it comes to the occult, maybe do that with all, right? It might take you some time, but I guarantee you, if you use those symbols to begin to try to figure out the unknown, because that's the algebra equation, right? This would represent the Y factor. It's 50% of the unknown. So you're using it. All right. That was for somebody, and that's going to have a breakthrough for somebody. Maybe just me. We gonna see. Hell yeah. Grendel Tucker, greetings, greetings. So Cosmic Chlorophyll asks, what book is that? Thank you, Tree Marie, for answering the question. "12. Each symbol, moreover, admits of interpretation upon the different planes, and through its astrological associations." By the way, those cards also that I showed or mentioned, they're associated with some astrological signs as well. But you know, it gets deep. Sunshine Chick says Sun, Star, Temperance, Nines, and the World card, the Universe card, number 21. The one where she's dancing in the middle of the wreath and she's got the 4 angels around her. So each symbol, moreover, admits of interpretation upon the different planes, and through its astrological associations can be related to the gods of any pantheon, thus opening up vast new fields of implication in which the mind ranges endlessly, symbol leading on to symbol in an unbroken chain of associations. This is one way to also learn to understand Samkhya or the universe or whatever through the tarot, by lining up the cards in order along the tree and trying to figure out the story. I've done that quite a few times. Now, maybe the first time, second time, 10th time, you're not going to pull anything out of it. But the more that you meditate on these cards in order, the more stuff is going to make sense. If anybody lives in Atlanta, when I was there, there was a bookstore, metaphysical bookstore, and also crystal store, and it was called Phoenix and the Dragon. And they had a bunch of crystals and a bunch of books on all types of things. Why did I bring that up? Oh yeah, I went to the bathroom and I looked up along the wall, and they've got all the tarot cards just lined up in order from different decks. And I thought that was a really cool idea. So anytime you go in there to use the restroom, you can just look up on the wall and see lined up across the wall all the different tarot cards. So cool. Living in the Zone says, wow, I love that bookstore. Yeah, awesome, awesome. What are the chances that somebody here actually knows what I'm talking about? I got myself some nice incense from there. My brother got his first crystals from there. Yeah, we all went. Me and my whole team. Everybody was pretty impressed with what they saw. Andy Smith says, look at the Hebrew letters also and the pictorial symbols they embody. Yes. Try to dig in and figure out all the different pieces of symbology, because look, these tarot cards or any occult symbol, it doesn't just mean one thing. There's so much behind it. And the more that you can pull out, the wider and more comprehensive your understanding is going to get. Okay, let's keep going. Yeah, the unbroken chain of symbols. Symbol confirming symbol as the many branching threads gather themselves together into a synthetic glyph once more, and each symbol capable of interpretation in terms of whatever plane the mind may be functioning upon. So just like what you said earlier, Alora, it depends on your level of understanding, right? All these symbols that we have here, you all will pull out different definitions than I will, because we have different levels of understanding of the symbols. But either way, the message will continue to come across, depending on the level, right? I can show a picture of a red balloon, and everybody's going to have a different interpretation, right? How many people have been programmed to think of Pennywise when you see a red balloon? And if you've never seen it, you'll have a different definition of that symbol. And if you're an occultist, you can understand that it would relate to it as well as other things. See, some people, they have somewhat of a closed mind, a limited understanding. They can only think that a symbol means one thing. But like she said here, symbol confirming symbol as the many branching threads gather themselves together into a synthetic glyph once more, and each symbol capable of interpretation in terms of whatever plane the mind may be functioning upon. It depends on you. It all depends on you. "13. This mighty, all-embracing glyph of the soul of man and of the universe, Purusha and Prakriti. Prakriti is the universe. The soul of man is Purusha. This mighty, all-embracing glyph of the soul of man and the universe, by virtue of its logical association of symbols, evokes images in the mind. But these images are not randomly evolved, but follow along well-defined association tracks in the universal mind. The symbol of the tree is to the universal mind what the dream is to the individual ego. It is a glyph synthesized from subconsciousness to represent the hidden forces. It is a glyph synthesized. Remember, I said synthesized is blended, right? Different symbols, different concepts blended together. It is a glyph synthesized from subconsciousness to represent the hidden forces. She's also talking about Yasod and Cheetah here. We're able to understand the rest of the tree through Yasod, because it is Yasod that is the synthesis of the rest of the tree. Looking into Yasod is like looking into a mirror or a river in which you can see the reflection of everything else. Because we don't have the eyes to see the rest of the tree, we have to use Yasod to do that. So she says these images are not randomly evolved. And that's one point that I do try to stress. Even though everyone's spiritual experience is individual, it isn't like random and like only you are experiencing it. Like, there's specific pathways dealing with the different spiritual planes. None of it is random. None of it is just, oh, I'm the only one to discover this. There's a universal mind at play. There's a collective unconscious. And just like everything else that exists, there's patterns to it. And the more that you understand the patterns, the more that you start to see how things work. But just like what she says here, these images are not random. They're not randomly evolved, but they follow along well-defined association tracks in the universal mind. The symbol of the tree is to the universal mind what the dream is to the individual ego. So think about that. When you sit down and you dream, think about what's happening there. Think about what composes the dream. Most of the time, you can only dream of things you've already seen, but the definitions of them might be changed. The relationships of these things might be changed. You really can only dream of things that you've seen before, but there's countless things that you dream of that you've never seen before, and that's why you don't remember it, right? Some people think they don't dream, and we often don't remember all the dreams we have. But the thing is, if we've never experienced it anywhere outside of that dream, it has nothing to cling on to in our ego. We can't remember any of it. So think about that, and then think about, she said, the tree to the universal mind, right? The tree of life contains many symbols based on what is experienced within the universal mind, right? Society Eject says, yo, Travis, run that back. I can't do it, man. I accidentally dropped some advanced info that I wasn't supposed to. It is a glyph synthesized from subconsciousness to represent the hidden forces. 14. The universe is really a thought form projected from the mind of God. Prakriti is a thought form projected from the mind of Purusha. The all is mind. The universe is mental. That's what that first Hermetic principle really means. The universe is really a thought form projected from the mind of God. Your objective existence is a projection of your soul. The Kabbalistic tree might be likened to a dream arising from the subconsciousness of God and dramatizing the subconscious content of the deity. The all is mind. The universe is mental. Not the mind is all. If anybody saw my presentation at the Master Student Conference, Hopefully you never get that quote wrong again. The mind is all. The all is mind. Big difference. Cosmic Chlorophyll says, yes, I loved it. Thank you. In other words, if the universe is the conscious end product of the mental activity of the logos, the tree is the symbolic representation of the raw material of the divine consciousness and of the processes whereby the universe came into being. Let me read that one back. In other words, if the universe is the conscious end product of the mental activity of the logos, if the all is mind and the universe is mental, then the tree is symbolic representation of the raw material of the divine consciousness and of the processes whereby the universe came into being. That right there is why it's important to learn this. That right there is why it's important to learn this. Because the tree represents the raw material of how the all is mind and the universe is mental. You can stop at that quote, the all is mind and the universe is mental, or you can start to think about how is the all mind and the universe mental. Society Eject says, LOL Travis, I'm on your ass Thursday night. LOL, pause. Pause. Yeah, man. Dreams, dreams, dreams. Number 15. There we go. But the tree applies not only to the macrocosm, but to the microcosm. You know, I gotta pull it out. Maybe somebody can guess what I'm about to pull out before I do it. Pause. Page 45. What we see here, we got a microcosm dealing with the soul, right? It says individual soul. So when I say Purusha means the soul, that's not just me saying stuff, right? If Swami Satchisangananda said it, I'm likely to believe it. And plus it makes sense. Microcosmos, Prakriti, right? Our personal experience, the higher self. I remember what I had shown yesterday. Right? What I showed yesterday about this chart here, if you can see it, from how it's looking to me, because the question I had was, you know, if they say that Prakriti starts to dance, move, and gyrate and percolate when she's close to Purusha, then I'm thinking, well, why is she close to Purusha? Well, how does this happen? And what I've come to realize is that Purusha is infinite, and somewhere inside of Purusha, Prakriti exists. Now, where she exists in layers. She's not just a lump of nature. There's layers. And at the very core, like they say Prakriti is egg-shaped, right? And in this egg, we can see it as, think of the earth, right? The earth is dense, hard rock. It's solid, but the earth has atmosphere around it. And layers of the atmosphere, from the thermosphere to the whatever sphere. I don't know the names of the atmospheres, but there's a bunch of them, right? And they are existing within layers of density. And the atmosphere extends far out. Even the sun, right? The sun's atmosphere extends far out. Same thing with Purusha and Prakriti. In the piece of Purusha that is Prakriti, we find that she manifests in layers. Now, the outside atmosphere of Prakriti is Buddhi, right? Got to raise my vibration to meet my higher self, right? Buddhi is the most fine and subtle atmosphere of Prakriti. But if you get closer to Prakriti herself, you're going to find that there's another layer that densifies as ahamkara, as ego, as om, infinite potential. Because it's at this level, there's a tendency to create and attach to things. There's a tendency to be specific. And if you condense even more and get closer to her core, you'll find that now we start having physical human bodies, 5 senses, the indriyas, right? This is the layer of existence where people exist. And if you continue to go even deeper, you'll find the most dense level of prithvi, right? Right? So she exists in layers of density. Yeah, so I said that to go back to talk with Shooty. I gotta stay on point here because this stuff is getting complex and abstract. That's what we're looking at here, right? That's the same thing we're looking at in this chart of the microcosm. These represent the dense, hardcore 5 elements, right? Prithvi, look at how it's at the bottom, just like in my chart, it's at the very center, the core of the earth. The core of the earth is not molten lava. It's probably extremely dense rock that cannot be penetrated by anything, right? Hell, it might even suck you in. It might even be a black hole. There's probably a black hole in the center of the earth. We don't know because we've never been there. I've never been there, I'll put it that way. Who knows what they're doing in Russia? Prithvi, Apis, Agni, Vayu, Akasha, earth, water, fire, air, Akash, right? That's the innermost layer of Prakriti. The outer layer wrapped around her are the 10 Indriyas and the 5 Tanmatras, just like I've got on my chart here, right? Wrapped around that layer of the core are the Indriyas, right? So this came to me in a vision. I didn't just make it up. This is what I mean by studying these symbols for so long, they start to synthesize and you get new visions. This is a chart I've never seen. I made this up, but I made it up synthesized of what I've been studying. So wrapped around those layers, around the layer of the human body, right, you get what's called Chitta. And we talked about that. Chitta is Yasad. You may have seen diagrams of the tree of life where it's actually a bunch of concentric circles like a target, like a bullseye. And with each layer, it gets more and more subtle, more and more subtle. So Chitta and Ahamkara, right? Chitta is the entire realm of possibility. It is Yasad, right? But Ahamkara is that which selects what slice of Chitta wants to manifest into a specific individual life. And if you expand out even further outside of that, you get Buddhi, which is this very fine layer of what we call the higher self, the collective unconscious even. And together, all of that makes what we know of as Prakriti, right? And all of that is within the field of Purusha. But check this out. That's the microcosm. That's the personal individual experience. If you zoom out even more, you'll come across the 5 Kanchukas, which are 5 more layers that limit the infinite power of our God self. So yes, there's even more than just the individual soul. There's something even higher than that we can't even comprehend. Hence the 3 layers of the triple blackness of space, the negative veils. But these 5 Kanchukas represent 5 limiting factors that start this process of the microcosm. And even that's underneath that, those 5 layers are what's called Maya, right? Maya, the illusion. Maya are these 5 Kanchukas. And if you don't know Tatwa Shuddhi, if you never read it, if you don't have it, if you do have it, it's on page 43. Those 5 Kanchukas are Kala, which limits the Kriya Shakti. It limits omnipotence. So you no longer believe that you're omnipotent. It limits avidya vidya, which is Jnana Shakti, the power to know. You no longer believe that you're omniscient, right? Raga. This creates desire and attachment, right? Makes you unhappy and discontent. There's Kala. And that limits infinite life, immortality, right? It limits perpetual existence by making you believe in time and change. Then there's Niyati. And that limits free will, right? That limits free will, because it creates the notion of fate and destiny and astrology. And we're really looking at Hakma here. She says here, thus, in this stage, we see the omnipresence, omniscience, and omnipotence of the Shiva Shakti unity, veiled by the power of Maya to create the notion of duality. Trav, what the hell are you talking about? Why'd you bring all that up? I'm glad you asked. She says here, but the tree applies not only to the macrocosm, but to the microcosm, which, as all occultists realize, is a replica in miniature. So what's happening there in that microcosm is only a reflection of what happened in the macrocosm. Because just like what I also said before, there's reflection happening. That's what Prakriti is. So Prakriti, as this giant egg, the first thing that she realizes is Purusha. So the first thing she creates is replica of Purusha, which we come to know as Buddhi. Now that process doesn't end because life, manifested life, is a fractal. So that function of fractality continues. Buddhi now creates its own version of the higher self, or its own version of soul called Ahamkara, right? Well, let me rephrase that. Prakriti replicates the relationship she has with Purusha. That's what she does. So in order for there to be a Purusha Prakriti, there has to be a Buddhi in Ahamkara. Ahamkara has to have Ahamkara and the five senses. The five senses have to have the five senses and something to cognize. Please tell me you get that. Because what's happening is we've got this relationship between Purusha and Prakriti. So what Prakriti is going to do is she's going to replicate that relationship, layer after layer after layer. And each reflection gets more and more dense, more and more concrete, more and more calcified. So instead of Purusha Prakriti, we now have Buddhi Ahamkara, right? Instead of Purusha Prakriti, we have Ahamkara and the Indriyas, right? Your ego and your body. Instead of having Purusha Prakriti, we have body and the world. You get it? So what she's saying here is the tree applies not only to the macrocosm, but to the microcosm, which, as all occultists realize, is a replica in miniature. It is for this reason that divination is possible. That little understood and much maligned art has for its philosophical basis the system of correspondences represented by symbols. So divination is not guessing, and it's not going off of your emotions. Oh, I just feel that the ancestor said that you need to break up with so-and-so because da-da-da-da-da. That's not divination. Divination is being able to see the patterns that exist. If such and such is happening, then according to the pattern, this should be happening next. Not according to how I feel about you and the situation personally, right? Divination has to do with something that is past ego. Ego is, oh, the ancestors have a message for you and I have to charge you $300 for me to reveal that message. No. It's not how it works. Ay, ay, ay. You guessed correctly, Sunshine Chick. It was Tawashudi. Tree Marie, also, you have guessed correctly, Tawashudi. Wyatt B, what's up, what's up? Welcome back. You know I said 8 o'clock Eastern time. Percolators! Mount up. Nice. Nuru says soul, self, Purusha, Atman, Brahman is what you actually are. It's real, not born and not dying, eternal. The substratum or original consciousness that you are always been here and will always be right here. Wyatt B says, so when do we get to exit the wheel of samsara? The moment that you realize you're not on the wheel. That's when you get to exit it. When you realize you weren't on it in the first place. But reality tells you otherwise, and so you continue the trip. Society Eject says, I don't think people understand the information you're dropping, bro. You know, but as long as it's in the unconscious mind, I think it will start to trigger things. Has to. Has to. Nuru says, we leave the wheel of samsara when we realize we are Atman alone, i.e. Purusha only, and all else is illusion. When we end attachment to the body, mind, Prakriti at death, then we stop reincarnating. Yes, sir. You realize that you weren't here in the first place. That's when you leave. Caesar says, I don't know a single term. Nah, Caesar, you've been here long enough. You know some of these terms. Hecate, peace, good evening. Tree Marie says, mass becoming energy and light is part of the Samkhya theory. Tamas, mass, matter. Rajas, energy, becomes sattva, light. All interchangeable aspects of Prakriti. Yes, ma'am. Beautifully said. Because even light is part of Prakriti, right? Stray Panther says, thank you to everyone for hitting the like button. I agree. Thank you. Bar Work Rebel says, I was gifted this book, but it is very complex for me to read through. I appreciate these videos. My pleasure, my guy. I'm glad that this is helping. Hikate says, it does stay in your unconscious mind. It will let you know sooner or later. Yes, ma'am. Sunshine Chick says, meditate on the Mahavakyas. I don't think he was here for that. But that is also another way to start to realize that you are not this world or this body. Okay, let's finish up this chapter. So, divination is what we were talking about. We were talking about the reflection of the microcosm and the macrocosm. We were talking about as above, so below. Really, verse 14, she broke down the all is mind, the universe is mental. 15, she's breaking down as above, so below. This is what I'm telling you. Dion Fortune is slick. She's teaching you stuff, but she's not teaching it in what you know of the label of it is, right? Imagine somebody teaching you algebra, but they never called it algebra one time. Because if I called it algebra, resistance is going to rise and you're going to fight it because you're going to say, well, this doesn't line up with what I know. Instead, she's giving it to you. And then after you read it, if you know, you'll say, wait a minute, she was talking about this. Remember I said last night, the way that you teach and get through to stubborn minds is to be indirect. And this is a perfect example. She doesn't tell you, I'm going to teach you as above, so below. She just talks about it, makes it sound really nice. And then you go back and realize, wait a minute. The four Mahavakyas. Sunshine Chick says, I am higher consciousness. You are that. My soul is higher consciousness. Brahman is knowledge and realization. So Wyatt B, I would memorize that, what she just said there. Okay, so it is for this reason that divination is possible. That little understood and much maligned art has for its philosophical basis the system of correspondences represented by symbols. The correspondences between the soul of man and the universe are not arbitrary, but arise out of developmental identities. Certain aspects of consciousness were developed in response to certain phases of evolution, like I just showed you with the egg and the different layers, and therefore embody the same principles. Consequently, they react to the same influences. Check that out. They react to the same influences. So no matter what layer we're dealing with, Prakriti responds to what she sees in Purusha, whether it's at the level of Buddhi, Ahamkara, the Indriyas, or even Malkuth. Even hard nature, rocks and trees and water and fire, lava, even all that responds to the reflections of what's in Purusha. So the fundamentals don't change. Only the expression changes depending on the level of quantity and quality of Purusha, right? So the human, right, has a higher quality and degree of consciousness than, say, a rock or a tree. So the expression of this relationship between Purusha and Prakriti, it's gonna be a little bit different than, say, a rock or a tree would. Likewise, the expression of soul in an animal is going to be different than in a human being. Likewise, the expression of soul in a planetary system, the expression of soul in an archangel, or anything else, the fundamentals are the same, but the level of expression is different. That's what makes this a fractal. So certain aspects of consciousness were developed in response to certain phases of evolution, and therefore, and by the way, when she's talking about evolution, she doesn't mean monkeys into men. She's talking about that chart that I showed and taught with Shudi, or that picture of the egg that I drew. We're talking about the evolution of the soul, not evolution of a monkey into a man. The evolution of a soul ranges from pure liberation all the way down to a dense rock and everything in between. That's spiritual evolution. You got two pictures of spiritual evolution. Here's one picture of spiritual evolution. At the very bottom, you have Prithvi, which is the earth element, then the water element, then the fire, then the air, then Akasha, right? This relationship is reflected on every level, even within the human diagram. Earth, water, fire, air, Akasha. This isn't just a cool picture. It's a diagram of the evolution of consciousness. Depending on where the awareness is, this relationship is going to express itself in one way or another. So this is the first picture of evolution. This is the second picture of evolution. From the top to the bottom, like I said, pure liberated soul, all the way down to dense, lifeless rock, and everything in between. So that's what she means when she says evolution in this book. The different states of consciousness as expressed through matter and things that are not matter. So what she says is certain aspects of consciousness were developed in response to certain phases of evolution, and therefore embody the same principles. The principles are the same no matter what level we're talking about. Whether it's Kether, Chesed, Chachma, or Bina. That's why she's getting all this out in the beginning of the book, so you can understand that as we dive into it. A man's soul is like a lagoon. When was the last time you heard the word lagoon? A man's soul is like a lagoon connected with the sea by a submerged channel. Although to all outward seeming, it is landlocked, right? So think about that. A lagoon, it looks like a big-ass lake. But imagine that big-ass lake was connected to the sea, but that connection was underground, right? So you didn't obviously see it going out into the sea. It was an underground channel. Although to all outward seeming it is landlocked, nevertheless its water level rises and falls with the tides of the sea because of the hidden connection. Ooh, that's a good image right there. So it is with human consciousness. There is a subconscious connection between each individual soul and the world soul, deep hidden in the most primitive depths of the subconsciousness, and in consequence, we share in the rise and fall of the cosmic tides. Man. Hariom Tat Sat. Society Eject says the Bihar school would definitely invite Dion Fortune to the cookout. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Hariom Tat Sat. Tree Marie says all I hear is moon, 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 moon. Chandra. Yes, ma'am. Said Chai Chick, is that the collective unconscious? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. That's what she's talking about. This is a powerful metaphor. This is a powerful verse and a powerful book. Just like a lagoon, right? Everyone's used to this lagoon that doesn't look like it's connected. It's just a body of water out here and people go fishing in it, whatever. But unbeknownst to all of us, it actually has a secret channel underground to the ocean. And what we find is that when the moon is full, the tide rises and it falls when it's new, right? We're seeing that the tide is changing. That's not typical of a lagoon. But nobody understands what's happening. We just assume that it's really cool. But no, there's a secret connection to something bigger. Likewise, it is with you and your subconscious mind. Like I said in the beginning of this video, there's extremely little. There's very little that we actually have conscious control of. Really, our consciousness is just aware of our surroundings and maybe how we feel. But everything else is an unconscious behavior, an unconscious activity. The way that we talk, the words that we choose, the things that we think about, the things that we feel. You can't control your blood pressure, heartbeat, how fast your hair grows, right? We can barely, for... We have somebody in the chat who does BBLs, right? You can't control your butt size unless you work out and do it right. And even then, sometimes it doesn't work. Some people have to go to the doctor to get a butt implant, right? We can't control these things about ourselves. There's so much about our existence that we cannot control. Yet something is moving these things, right? I'll notice that a lot of us have certain kind of dreams. I'll ask a question in the chat. how many of you guys is synchronicity ramping up like crazy, like never before, right? For how many people is synchronicity like going crazier than ever right now? I'm talking about crazy. Like for me, it's like I'll think of a word in my head and then I'll hear it on the radio, on a YouTube video. Somebody in the other room will say it, or I'll even see the word if I flip open a book. Just random stray thoughts. And then something pops up that literally echoes what just happened in my head. I'm not talking about 5 minutes later, an hour later. Oh, well, we were just talking about that 2 hours ago. I'm talking about right away. Right? So I know that this is happening for all of y'all. I know it is because I know how to look at that underground connection to the ocean. And if you study that underground connection to the ocean, you can start to see what's happening in the world around you. Just like what she said. See, look, this is divination. She says it is for this reason that divination is possible. It's not about, oh, the ancestors said y'all need to break up. That's just some gossip right there with a spiritual t-shirt on, right? But what divination is actually is being able to look at that ocean and then come back to the lagoon and tell everybody, hey, y'all, the tide's about to go up or go down. And for those who don't know any better, no, you're just making that up. But those who listen to you, it'll seem like magic. This is how this works, y'all. Trying to tell you. Society Eject says cosmic tides. Exactly. Whether you want to look at the tides of the sun going across them 12 signs, if you want to look at the tides of the moon going across them 28 houses and the 4 phases, right? Or if you want to look at the Tatvik tides, which is it's a little bit more difficult to track, but there are Tatvik tides where the sun is beaming down with the energy of Prithvi, Apas, Vayu, Agni, Akash, which has a different effect on the collective unconscious. If you're able to read these patterns, you can tell what's happening. Cesar says NASA's premier X-ray observatory was named the Chandra Ray Observatory in honor of the late Indian American Nobel laureate Subrahmanyan Chandrasekhar. It looks like a lot of people have been experiencing that synchronicity, right? A lot of people looks like here. Yes, I see synchronicities all day. Me, LOL. Yes, 100. Right? As soon as I think of something, it'll pop up. Yep. And this is what I mean. Like, yeah, of course, we've been experiencing this for a long time, at least since 2012. But lately, it's been getting ridiculous. So if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. I don't just mean regular ones. I mean extreme ones. Sakura Q Nexus says instant noodle synchronicity. Man. Scott Russell says, man, all the time. I think of someone and bam, they show up within the hour. Straight Panther says, I've been saying things that have come true at times and my intuition is getting stronger. Yes. So me and my close friend, I asked her, like, do you think that we're getting better at manifestation or is the world changing? Right? Because it'll happen with us every single day we talk. Every single day. Like, I'll say something or she'll say something and something literally happens within the next 5 minutes based on something that we just said. Ooh. Lagoon. Society Eject says Lagoon equals Pranamaya Kosha equals Yasad. Yeah. And notice also she said that moon reference. See, all this is connected, man. All this is connected. If I read this again next year, I'm going to have... I shudder to think of how much sense this is all going to make. All right, let's keep going. 16. Each symbol upon the tree represents a cosmic force or factor. When the mind concentrates upon it, it comes into touch with that force. Let me read this again, y'all. Each symbol upon the tree represents a cosmic force or factor, right? Each symbol upon the tree represents a cosmic force or factor. When the mind concentrates upon it, it comes into touch with that force. That's how this works. In other words, a surface channel A channel in consciousness has been made between the conscious mind and the individual and a particular factor in the world soul. And through this channel, the waters of the ocean pour into the lagoon. The more you work with Kabbalah, the more that the waters from that ocean pour into the lagoon. And by the way, the secret hidden underground channel is this tree of life. The aspirant who uses the tree as his meditation symbol establishes point by point the union between his soul and the world soul. Union, yoga. Look, your personal soul, the Atma, right? Your personal soul is one and the same as the total soul. And the aspirant who uses the tree as his meditation symbol establishes point by point the union between his soul and the world soul. This results in a tremendous access of energy to the individual soul. It is this which endows it with magical powers, siddhis, right? If you know, you know. If you know, you know. I hope y'all are catching this, man, because, like, I'm not even being egotistical. There's not too many places you're going to find this quality of information. Not because it's coming out of my mouth, but because the woman who wrote this, she's very much connected. But also, the influences behind what I'm doing is very much connected. And your ability to receive this information is a sign that you also have that connection. You're not going to find this in too many places. Dare I say, many, if any. Living in the Zone says the lagoon is how we can pop up in other people's dreams. Indeed. Hari Om Tat Sat. 17. But just as the universe must be ruled by God, so must the many-sided soul of man be ruled by its God, the spirit of man. The higher self must dominate its universe, or there will be unbalanced force. The higher self must dominate its universe, or there will be unbalanced force. Get your buddhi right? There's no BBLs for the buddhi. You cannot get it artificially plump. You have to let go and release the attachments that are formed in the level of ahamkara and ego to be able to expand and experience this higher self. Rumor has it I made a class about this, and rumor has it the people who took that class have actually experienced some of this expansion. But I highly recommend to be aware of the beliefs that you cling to so tightly. And I don't mean spiritual beliefs. I mean all beliefs, right? You believing that a certain race of people is evil or more superior than another. You believing that, because I burp and fart, that means my body is eating dangerous foods. Like everything that you believe, please analyze your belief systems, because it is through those beliefs that you create your reality. And the further out you go, the more, the less constricting beliefs you'll start to find. There's more acceptance, more love, more understanding as you expand. But people who have very, very hard and tightly held beliefs and tight strongholds, the closer they are to density and the less free will they have. So just as the universe must be ruled by God, so must the many-sided soul of man be ruled by its God, the spirit of man. The higher self must dominate its universe, or there will be unbalanced force. Each factor will rule its own aspect, and they will war among themselves. Then do we have the rule of the kings of Edom, whose kingdoms are unbalanced force. Remember that was in a Bible verse as well. 18. Thus do we see in the tree a glyph of the soul of man and the universe, and in the legends associated with it, the history of the evolution of the soul and the way of initiation. You don't get initiated by paying somebody $1,000 to buy a goat and cut its neck in Africa, right? You become initiated by understanding that secret channel under the lagoon that connects it to the ocean. Hari Om Tat Sat. 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 Ooh, Society Eject says, yep, she's really breaking down what the astral is on this page, and most people can't get there. Man. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. Tree Marie says Buddhi can take an outer vision identifying with body and mind, which creates the ego, ignorance, duality. Or it can take an inner vision reflecting the Atman within. Thank you, Sunshine Chick. Sunshine Chick says, just a reminder, Travis Magus only has one Instagram account. If you get a message from another fake account, please report and block. Yes, please and thank you. I sliced off the head of one of my scammers, and now 2 more have appeared in its place. So please don't get fooled by that. If you see an Instagram account, look at the posts. Look at how many comments. Look at how many likes, right? And scroll down. One of those fake accounts, if you scroll down just like 6 rows, there's no pictures of me. It's pictures of some other woman and some other stuff that has nothing to do with what I do. Just use your intuition, use your context clues, just be smart about it. Never in my life have I or will I inbox you talking about, let me give you a reading. The ancestors have told, I don't give readings. I've never given a reading. I mean, if I have, it was something I didn't want to do. I don't like to do that. That's not what I'm here for. I'm a teacher. I'm not sitting up here trying to give people readings. Mostly because I don't want to get tangled up in other people's unconscious minds like that. But if you see an account with my face talking about, let me give you a reading, it's not me. That's not my style. That's not how I do things, right? Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. Stuffed Dog, peace, peace, my brother. Peace, peace. I'm glad you're here. Oh, that's a good one as well. Nuru says Nikola Tesla and other accurate unified field physicists called this lagoon ether, or ether. It is the inside out or inverse of space. Einstein called it spooky because he didn't understand it. Tesla did. Yes, sir. Living in the Zone says just like the upside down world in Stranger Things. Nura says quantum physics calls it quantum entanglement. With August. Hari Om Tat Sat. The ancestors told me to give you a message. Sadi Ejek says, LOL, your ancestors told me to tell you to fuck out of here. Living in the Zone says, I blocked one almost every day this week. Damn. Lance Benefield says, you have over 1,000 posts. The fake account has only 240. Yeah, and they buy followers. I don't know. She's got more followers than me at this point. And I know it's a her because when she gives out that Cash App, it's like a woman's name. But yeah, the way that we beat these accounts is if you don't just block them, report them as fraud and imitating somebody. When we did that, we were able to get them off the internet. They canceled their account, so now they have to do extra work to create another one. So if you want to help, report them for fraud and impersonating my page. Because I don't want anybody else to get scammed because they believe in what I'm doing, and this person out here is just, you know, being distasteful, I would say. Mariah Magdalene says, "What's your Instagram?" Well, you can find me at LVX777. Just look for it. If you scroll up, Sunshine Chick posted the actual link. LVX777. Very simple. Not 1VX, not IVX, because she tries all those different ones. I think at one point she tried IVX7.777. Just look for LVX777 and make sure that it actually makes sense. Okay, so let's get to this next chapter. Thank you, Sunshine Chick. That is the link right there. Dion Fortune. All right, so I wonder, will we actually be able to get through the whole thing, or should I stop it at 2 chapters? Oh, this is kind of thick. So the reason I was assuming to do 3 chapters each time is because I was so used to the books by Swami Niranjanananda Saraswati, and he writes in brief. His books are really short and quick, so we could easily pop out 20 pages in like 2-3 hours. I forgot that Dion Fortune stuffs a lot in all of her sections, so I might need to change and start doing 2 chapters at a time. And when we get to the actual Sephiroth, maybe 1 chapter at a time. Living in the Zone says 2 chapters is fine because of the current pace. Yeah, I think that's what I'm gonna do. That's what I'm gonna do. Because, like I said, we could stay on here all night. I don't mind. But I also want people to actually be able to go back and watch these videos, and I don't want it to be too heavy. Although I can do long content and I love doing it, we all have lives. There's no way to get around that. And not to mention, because there's so much data packed into this juicy content, obviously I'm sitting here breaking down each verse. So yeah, we're probably going to keep it at 2 chapters. I'll change the thumbnails. Tree Marie says, LOL, remember when you created the syllabus for this book? Yeah. I remember when we used to sit in the government yard in Brooklyn. Abba Soffit, the hypocrites. Alright, so check this out. I'm going to take a quick break, and then we are going to dive into this next chapter. So stay tuned. Don't leave. None of that. I'll be right back. Hari Om Tat Sat. Oh no, that's a first. Usually when I leave to take a quick break, people leave, but now I see more people actually joined. I must be doing something right. So dry your tears, I say. Atropa says these people are ridiculous. There's always somebody doing unsavory things. Savory is a good word. Unsavory. It's full of flavor. When I hear savory, like, I start to taste. Savory. Sly says a new fake account followed me today. WB 12K followers. I reported. Thank you. Pork Hill, welcome back. To my peeps who passed away. No woman, no cry. No woman, no cry. Matthew Watson says, I don't know how we did them beginning book reads without the yoga books. Man, I remember, man. We started that Mystical Kabbalah book study the first time, and everybody was gung-ho. I was gung-ho, everybody was gung-ho. But man, after each week, the numbers got slimmer and slimmer and slimmer. It went from about 30 faces on that Zoom call to a solid 3 or 4. And no offense or shade to anybody, I get it, but man, you really have to have a foundation to talk about this information and understand it. So yeah, I agree. I don't know how I attempted to do this without some foundational information, but that's good. It was a learning experience for me, right? So now I understand a little bit better, which is why we went through the yoga books first. Beautiful love, peace, peace. Matthew Watson says, I was straight lost in the sauce, man. Nuru says Tesla met Swami Vivekananda and studied Vedas. He used Sanskrit words like akasha, prana, and the concept of luminiferous ether to describe the source, existence, and construction of matter and life. That's what made Tesla so different. I'm telling you, man, studying Vedic information can make you a genius. Don't believe me, just watch. Nigga, digga, digga, don't believe me, just watch. And if not just that, you can also look into the Soundarya Lahiri, the Sri Soundarya Lahiri, and probably tap into shloka number 3, like I have. Clean. Shloka number 3. And what that does for you is grants knowledge, all that one can desire, especially knowledge on the Vedas, and also wealth and knowledge. If you have yourself some experience with the Goetic spirits, you might want to check out this right here. It's going to take some effort on your part, though. But you can do it. Hari Om Tat Sat. Nuru says, I just learned that Tesla and Vivekananda had a relationship. What would you expect to become if you weren't already hyper intelligent and then you develop a relationship with a Swami? Man, listen up. Matthew Watson says, facts, we all grew so much in just 1 year. You know what I'm saying? I love it. I'm grateful and humbled. Like, this is really cool. I wish that I could have something like this whenever I was first starting, but you know. Tree Marie says, blazing through the chapters weekly was tough. Sheesh. Hari Om Tat Sat. Peace, sunshine chick. Peace. Uh-oh. Great, now I'm gonna get demonetized.
Applebee's late night because half off is just more fun. Now that's eating good in the neighborhood.
Alright, let's get back to it. Let's get back to it. Now that I have your attention, let me do something productive with it. Straight Panther 79 says you have to have an honest intention to pick up the subtle messages with this. Yes, indeed. I want to rock and roll all night. That must be a sign that they want me to keep going, right? Okay. Chapter 4, the Unwritten Kabbalah. Tree Marie says it's 4:30 a.m. over here. Dang. So you already been rock and rolling. Aw, late night occult hangouts. You guys remember sleepovers? Did any of you do sleepovers with friends? It was so cool being a little kid and like being able to hang out with your friends outside of school. I can imagine being a kid right now, man. Such a different world. Peace out, Caesar. Fun hangout session. We're actually learning stuff, right? Instead of gossip and trash talking and things that don't matter. Society Eject says we should do a sleepover on YouTube, LOL, Friday night. Now you're giving me ideas. To be honest, I do miss doing like the extremely long live streams that we did probably like a year ago with like everybody on there just talking about a bunch of stuff. I do miss those. But I don't know. Maybe we could create something like that. Straight Panther says, yeah, pizza, movies, penthouse, and Nintendo. Oh man. We had PlayStation 1 back in my days. Nuru says, I remember we did 18 straight hours once in 2020. We did 24 hours once, but at the time, YouTube didn't hold 24-hour videos. So it cut it back, I think, to like 18 hours. But for sure, one day, we were on there for 24. It just cut it back. All right, let's keep going. Because like I said, I do want to try to keep this around 3 hours, but we've only got 30 minutes, so we'll see. Tree Marie says, haha, love y'all. Love you too. Really, man, you guys have become close friends. Cherished friends. All right, let me focus. Gotta focus. So, 1. The point of view from which I approach the Holy Kabbalah in these pages differ, so far as I know, from that of all other writers on the subject. For, to me, it is a living system of spiritual development, not a historical curiosity. For people, even among those interested in occultism, realize that there is an active esoteric tradition in our midst, handed down in the private manuscripts and by mouth to ear. Still fewer know that it is the Holy Kabbalah, the mystic system of Israel, which forms its basis. But where may we look more aptly for our occult inspiration than to the tradition which gave us the Christ? The interpretation of the Kabbalah is not to be found, however, among the rabbis of the outer Israel, who are Hebrews after the flesh, but among those who are the chosen people after the Spirit. In other words, the initiates. Neither is the Kabbalah, as I've learned it, a purely Hebraic system. Please remember that. Kabbalah is not a purely Hebrew system. Now, it's been taught to us in a Hebraic backdrop. But understand, this is not something that belongs to the Hebrew culture, right? It's just easier to kind of attribute it there. But obviously, as I've shown, we've got so many elements from so many different places. The Kabbalah contains aspects of yoga, right? Aspects from the Egyptian pantheon, and everything that is very old. Wyatt B says Sri Ramakrishna didn't pass mouth through ear, he did foot to chest. Okay. Blaxican in Taiwan says any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Ah, you must have rewinded to the beginning of this video. We know where he's at. Newer says, I think I had a 4-hour nap during that marathon session. Yeah, that's always funny to see people pop up in the chat and they're like, well, damn, I went to sleep and woke up and y'all still alive. Mr. Higglesworth says, I feel like they took it when they walked out of Egypt. Very possible. Okay, let's keep going. The interpretation of the Kabbalah is not to be found, however, among the rabbis of outer Israel, who are Hebrews after the flesh, but among those who are the chosen people after the spirit. In other words, the initiates. Neither is the Kabbalah, as I've learned it, a purely Hebraic system, for it has been supplemented during medieval times by much alchemical lore and by the intimate association with it of that most marvelous system of symbolism, the tarot. So keep in mind also, I don't really care to prove where it came from, right? Because if you ask me, my answer is probably going to be different from your answer. But what she's starting to illustrate here, one of the things that she's starting to illustrate here is you've got elements from not only the Hebrew, not only from India, not only from Egypt, Kemet, Africa, but also from Europe and Greece, right? And Spain, right? In other words, like she said, this is a living system of spiritual development. So guess what? We're going to start finding aspects that are added to it from modern times. I mean, hell, we can't talk about Kabbalah and understand it without including symbolism and aspects from our modern life. So Kabbalah is a living system. It's a living system. And those of us who understand that will learn how to operate it. Because some people think it's just like this dead, static thing that has to be studied and treated the same as how it used to be, right? Make Kabbalah great again. No. A Kabbalah we can believe in, right? Or whatever Osama said. A milli. In my presentation of the subject, therefore, I do not appeal so much to tradition in support of my views as to modern practice among those who make use of the Kabbalah as their method of occult technique. It may be alleged against me that the ancient rabbis knew nothing of some of the concepts here set forth. To this I reply that it is hardly to be expected that they should, as these things were not known in their day, but are the work of their successors of the spiritual Israel. So in other words, like what I said a little bit earlier, there's stuff about the Kabbalah that we know now, even y'all who may consider yourselves not very deep in it. There's stuff that you know now that the ancient rabbis didn't know, right? And how could they know? Because we are applying concepts that didn't exist in their time. So don't pride yourself like, yeah, we're better than them. It's just a symptom of the times, right? And guess what? Those ancient rabbis didn't need to know all the stuff that we know to be able to wield this knowledge effectively. Now, for us, it could even be said that it's a bit more difficult because we've got so much more information to sift through than they had in the past. For my part, although I would not willingly mislead anyone concerning the teachings of those of ancient days, and upon matters of historical accuracy stand subject to correction from any who are better informed than I am in these matters, and their name is legion, I care not one jot for the authority of tradition if it hampers the free development of a system of such practical value as the Holy Kabbalah. So she's saying, look, I'm not the expert on this. There's people who know way more than me, right? I'm not here to sit here and talk about, oh, I'm the authority on the subject. She's not saying that. Right? She's saying I'm open to be corrected, right? I'm open to be corrected. And there's plenty of people who are better than me at this. However, I don't give a good goddamn for the authority of tradition, right? I don't care about it's supposed to be this way according to Rabbi Ben so-and-so. She says, I don't care about that if it hampers the free development, right? This is open source, baby, right? This is open source, right? She doesn't care about the authority if it hampers the free development of such a beautiful, powerful system. Living knowledge, as Society Eject says. Make spirituality great again. Nice. Vote Qabalah 2023. So yeah, I care not one jot. Ooh, misfortune. You hear that language she's pulling out? I care not one jot for the authority of tradition if it hampers the free development of a system of such practical value as the Holy Kabbalah. And I use the work of my predecessors as a quarry, whence I fetch the stone to build my city. Neither am I limited to this quarry by any ordinance that I know of, but fetch also cedar from Lebanon, another Bible reference, Isaiah verse number 60, and gold from Ophir if it suits my purpose. So in other words, she uses the work of her teachers. She uses the work of the people who have gone before her, just like I do, just like we do, right? She uses the work of our predecessors as a quarry. Do you know what a quarry is? A quarry is like a little cave or something that people go in and they mine for like rocks to be used, right? So she uses the ancient studies, the ancient texts, the ancient work as the quarry to fetch the stone to build her city. That's what we're doing, right? And check this out, though. Check this out. She's not limited to the stone that, not limited to the quarry, right? But she also fetches cedar from Lebanon. So she goes to get wood from somewhere else and goes to get gold from somewhere else. In other words, she's going out to grab different ingredients to build this temple, right? Bobby Hemmett says, he who knows one book knows none. So all these people who try to understand God but just have one book that they stand on and that's it, by default you're limited. By default you're limited. Right? So when she's talking about the different stone, the different wood, the different gold, this is the cross reference, right? All of this right here, whether it's become a living God, whether it's Hermetic Kabbalism, right? Whether it's yoga and all this right here, Naga magic, initiation into Hermetics. A lot of these are very different aspects, right? We're getting some stone from here. We're getting some wood from here. We're getting some gold from here. But the temple is built of many different ingredients. And what we find is that when the structure is complete, the original picture is starting to be revealed. So it's not a hybrid monster. We're actually reassembling Osiris, right? You're actually putting back together the fragments, right? And that even connects with this type of thing, right? With marketing. If you're somebody interested in marketing, this is one of the Bibles of understanding influence. And if this is too heavy for you to read, I recommend getting the Cliff Notes as well, because it helps to break it down when you're short for time. But you know, it's not for everybody. focused on this here. Society Eject says, LOL. So basically she's saying, I gives no fuck about what y'all talking about over there. The more we read the old text, we can see some low-key dissing, LOL. Yep. It's funny because you'll see some authors start to talk trash about Crowley, and they do it real slick. Tree Marie says, she said, fuck the oaths. The people deserve to know. Yes. That's why I love Miss Fortune. Maria Magdalene says, damn, that's a lot of books, LOL. Oh, that's not anything. That's just what I'm currently looking through. All right, let's keep going. Let it be clearly understood, therefore, that I do not say, this is the teaching of the ancient rabbis. Rather do I say, this is the practice of the modern Kabbalists. And for us, a much more vital matter, for it is a practical system of spiritual unfoldment. It is the yoga of the West. So if you don't believe it by now, may the Queen of Qabalah make it clear. Qabalah is the yoga of the West. Right? So just like what she said, Christianity was born out of the womb of Judaism. Likewise, Kabbalah was born out of the womb of yoga. Right? If it ain't good enough that I said it, let it be good enough that she said it. Or better yet, let it be good enough that your study and your research proves it. You dig? Yeah. Tree Marie says Fortune traveled to India before she even wrote the book, or no? I believe she did. I can't confidently say yes, but I'm pretty sure she did. That's something I should get clear on, though. Yoga. Because they didn't have the internet. You know, they had a few books, but mainly they had to go learn it straight from a guru. All these other big heavy names traveled to India. Pretty sure she did as well. Stray Panther 79 says we need a Magus Society library or reference book guide. I'll tell you one of those synchronicities. I was lying in bed and I was like, you know what? I should get my camera out and just do a little Instagram live, just showcasing all the different books that I have laid out that I'm currently studying. I think that would be pretty cool. And not even 5 minutes later, I opened my phone and my friend that I was talking about, who's having these synchronicities as well, she literally just posted an Instagram live about all these different books scattered across her floor. I'm like, what the hell? And she's got a lot of the same books that I have. Like 80% of her books are ones that I've recommended. So it was like I'm seeing the same books on the screen that I was just thinking about making a video to showcase. That's what I mean by like these synchronicities are ramping up like crazy. Like literally what I was thinking was being done as I thought it. That type of thing has been happening every day, multiple times a day for the past couple of weeks, I guess. I don't know. Wyatt B says, how many books does it take to get to the center of the conscious pop? 1, a 2, a 3. Okay. How many licks does it take till you get to the center of the... Oh! Man. Society Ejects says, Straight Panther 79, Travis, shut up. I dreamed that we started an online library and went to open a comic book store. Don't ask me how I know that Lil' Kim song. wasn't by choice. Five. Having thus guarded myself as far as possible against blame for not having done what I never undertook to do, let me now define my own position in the matter of scholarship and general qualifications for the task in hand. So far as actual scholarship goes, I am in the same class as William Shakespeare, having little Latin and less Greek, and of Hebrew only that peculiar portion which is cultivated by occultists, the ability to transliterate unpointed Hebrew script for the purposes of geometric calculations. Of any knowledge of Hebrew as a language, I am guiltless. So in other words, she knows enough to be able to deal with what she's working with, right? I remember when I was much younger, I used to love me some Rammstein. Rammstein, right? I bought every album. I had T-shirts, posters. I was a big Rammstein fan, and this was like the early days. This was, I don't know, early 2000s, real early 2000s, like actually the year 2000, 2001, 2002. And I would memorize all the songs and like scream them at the top of my lungs as I rode my bike to work. So imagine this black kid riding through the hood, like in the middle of the night, screaming German at the top of his lungs as he rides through your neighborhood. I don't know what the hell I was on, but I loved it. And the whole time I was imagining myself on stage performing and being in this, all these people coming to see me at concert, which eventually came to pass in a degree. But anyways, I'm sitting here learning all these Rammstein lyrics, which are all in German, right? None of it's in English. So what I did was I was look online the translation of these, and I start to see common words recurring. And over time, I actually started to learn a little bit of German, but I only learned enough to really understand the songs. But what I found was that I was able to understand a little bit. I wasn't fluent in German, duh. But just from all those songs and the emotional power that I had behind them, I was able to start to pick up on enough to make it make sense. That's what she's saying here, right? I'm in the same class as William Shakespeare, having little Latin, less Greek, and of the Hebrew, only that peculiar portion which is cultivated by occultists. I only knew enough German cultivated by Rammstein, right? The ability to transliterate unpointed Hebrew script for the purpose of geometric calculations. So she knew just enough to do her work. You feel me? So don't sit, she's saying I'm not a Hebrew expert, but I do know what's important to what I got going on. Du hast mich. Riding through the hood in the middle of the night, screaming some Du hast mich. Du hast mich gefragt und ich hab nichts gesagt. Willst du bis der Tod scheiden? Treu sei für allen Tage. Why? What do you think? Funny stuff, man. Tree Marie says, hey, not bad. Thank you. That's why I use that metaphor, because I knew you were in Germany. 6. Whether such frank acknowledgement of my deficiencies will serve to disarm criticism, I do not know. No doubt it will be alleged against me, and not without justification, that one so ill equipped should not have undertaken the task at all. To this I reply that if one saw a man lying injured, should the admitted absence of a medical qualification debar one from going to his assistance and giving him what help one could, pending the arrival of qualified attention? In other words, if you see a man on the side of the road fucked up, are you going to just walk past and say, oh, I'm not a doctor, can't help you, and maybe pull out your phone and start recording? Is that what you're going to do? Or you're going to do what you can to try to help, right? So she's saying she's not going to let her lack of knowledge on a particular language stop her from trying to figure this stuff out. My work upon the Kabbalah is of the nature of first aid. I find an invaluable system lying neglected and ill qualified for the task as I may be. I am striving to draw attention to its possibilities and restore to it its proper place as the key to Western occultism. And it is my chief hope in doing so that it may attract the attention of scholars, and that they will continue the task of translation and investigation of the Kabbalistic manuscripts, which are as yet a vein of which only the outcroppings have been worked. She's saying it's deeper than what's being presented here, y'all. There's so much more that has been untapped. And this is the exact same mindset that I have with this Vedic information. I believe that in this Vedic information, there is so much that could be helpful to all of us who consider ourselves spiritual students. And I've worked hard to really put out as much information as I can to keep people curious about it, because there are answers here. The same way that she's been fighting hard to put Kabbalah at the front of the attention, and it's worked. Heme Hercules asks, is my Instagram hacked? No, it's not hacked, but there is a fake and phony. Look at the details, right? Look at the comments, look at the likes. Scroll down and see that there are no pictures of me, but other people. Don't just block that page, but report it as a fraud. Because if you just block it, Instagram won't take it down. I see a couple of people here love System of a Down as well. I was definitely screaming that through the hood as well. Nuru says, think about yoga or Samkhya as an antenna building exercise. Every 100 hours in practice, extend the antenna to send and receive information further as coded light throughout the lagoon, or Akasha as cosmos. That's a good metaphor. Building the antenna to send and receive across that lagoon through the hidden channel. Sadi Eject says, I did so many drum covers to System of a Down. I didn't know you played drum. I didn't know you were a drummer. Nuru says, the further you extend this transmitter or receiver inside you through yoga, meditation, the more synchronicities you will experience, because your antenna signal and that of the other person grows. Now that could be a good explanation of what's been happening lately. Uh-oh, I see some 9-inch nails and some tools. Some tools. All right, let's keep going. 7. One qualification for my task I can plead in justification. However, for the last 10 years, I have lived and moved and had my being. Hey, that's, where's that from? That's from the Bible. It's also from the Kabbalion. For the last 10 years, I have lived and moved and had my being in the practical Kabbalah. I have used its methods both subjectively and objectively till they have become a part of myself. And I know from experience what they yield in psychic and spiritual results, and their incalculable value as a method of using the mind. It is not required of those who would use the Kabbalah as their yoga that they should acquire extensive knowledge on the Hebrew language. All right, so she's saying you can do this even if you don't know Hebrew. The same way that I didn't understand Sanskrit, but I'm still trying to teach the information. You don't need to understand Sanskrit, but you do need to contemplate what's happening. It is not required of those who would use the Kabbalah as their yoga that they should acquire any extensive knowledge of the Hebrew language. All they need is to be able to read and write the Hebrew characters. The modern Kabbalah has been pretty thoroughly neutralized in the English language, but it retains, and must ever retain, all its words of power in Hebrew, which is the sacred language of the West, just as Sanskrit, is the sacred language of the East. Now keep this in mind also. Imagine trying to do Sanskrit mantras, but you're like, oh, I don't understand Sanskrit. and then you turn your mantra just into the English version. Is that going to have the same effect? Right? Some of those mantras don't even translate into English. Imagine doing the Mahamrityunjaya mantra in English. Oh, three-eyed one, we worship you, he who smells really good and creates the universe. Just like a cucumber falls off the vine, collect me and keep me juicy after I die. That will have the same effect. Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamika Bandhanat Mrityur Mukshyamamritat. O three-eyed one, keep me juicy. Amen. Okay. There are those who have objected to the free employment of Sanskrit terms in occult literature, and no doubt they will object even more strongly to the employment of Hebrew characters. But their use is unavoidable, for every letter in Hebrew is also a number, and the numbers to which words add up are not only an important clue to their significance, but can also be used to express the relationships existing between different ideas and potencies. That's highlightable. Check it out. Living in the Zone says Stray Panther is either a 70s or 80s baby listening to all the legendary bands. And for you to know that, you must also be too. 9. According to MacGregor Mathers, in the admirable essay which forms the introduction to his book, the Kabbalah is usually classed under 4 heads. The practical Kabbalah, which deals with talismanic and ceremonial magic. The dogmatic Kabbalah, which consists of the Kabbalistic literature. The literal Kabbalah, which deals with the use of letters and numbers. And this chapter, the Unwritten Kabbalah, which consists of a correct knowledge of the manner in which the symbol systems are arranged on the Tree of Life, and concerning which MacGregor Mathers says, I may say no more on this point, not even whether I myself have or have not received it. But as this portentous hint is elaborated by the late Miss MacGregor Mathers in her introduction to the new edition of his book, and the following plain-spoken words, simultaneously with the publication of the Qabalah in 1887, he received instructions from his occult teachers to prepare what was eventually to become his esoteric school. It may be justifiable to say that if he did receive the unwritten Kabbalah, it has for some years ceased to be unwritten. For after a quarrel with MacGregor Mathers, Aleister Crowley, the well-known author and scholar, published the lot. Crowley was a scoundrel. He was always doing stuff to upset his teachers. But you know what? That's a pattern, because Israel Regardie did the same thing with his book about the Golden Dawn. But yeah, after a quarrel with MacGregor Mathers, Aleister Crowley, the well-known author and scholar, published the lot. His books are now rare and hard to come by, and being much valued by the more scholarly of esotericists. Their price has gone up, out of sight, and they seldom come into second-hand book market. ZJ, greetings. Literature. Trey Marie says Crowley ain't done nothing wrong. Scott Russell says that dang Crowley. Good old Crowley. 10. The breaking of an initiation oath is a serious matter, and a thing that I, for my part, do not care to do. You ain't gonna catch Dion Fortune breaking no oaths. See? She ain't new to this. She's true to this. She knows the assignment. She's down for the cause. But I admit of no authority that debars me from collecting and collating all available material that has been published upon any subject and interpreting it according to the best of my understanding. So is she saying that if you swore an oath of secrecy, you can't talk about what was said under secrecy, but you can read books that are related to the subject matter that you actually swore an oath of secrecy to? Meaning that if you're talking and explaining about the book, you're not divulging secret society secrets. Clever, Misfortune. I'm glad you taught me how to do that. In these pages, it is the system given by Crowley of which I shall avail myself to supplement the points upon which MacGregor Mathers, Wynne Westcott, and A.E. Waite, the principal modern authorities upon the Kabbalah, are silent. So she's found a loophole how to talk about what can't be talked about. I love this woman. Society Eject says, LOL, the Golden Dawn is a dictionary of snitching. This is the book in reference, by the way. This is the book that should not have been published. Stuffed Dog 69 says the Sith apprentice always tries to overthrow the master. And that's actually part of the apprenticeship. They're very reptilian. Creepy crawlers. Straight Panther 79 says creepy Crawley. I was in Baddick training with a guy named Crawley. Fun fact. Basic training with a guy named Crawley. Dreamery says Mathers is behind it all with the publishing. Interesting. 11. As to whether I myself have received any knowledge of the unwritten Kabbalah, it would as ill beseem me. Oh, I gotta implement that word into my vocabulary. It would ill beseem me, as MacGregor Mathers, to be explicit upon this point, and having followed his classic example of burying my head in the sand and waving my tail, I will return to the consideration of the matter in hand. I can't say that I have or have not received the unwritten Kabbalah, but we can still discuss it. 12. The essence of the unwritten Kabbalah lies in the knowledge of the order in which certain sets of symbols are arranged upon the tree of life. This tree, Etz Chaim, consists of the 10 holy sephirah arranged in a particular pattern and connected by lines which are called the 32 paths of the Sefer Yetzirah, or divine emanations. See the Sefer Yetzirah by Wynne Westcott. Here there exists one of the blinds or traps for the uninitiated, in which the ancient rabbis delighted. We find, if we count them, that there are 22, not 32 paths upon the tree. But for their purposes, the rabbis treated the 10 sephiroths themselves as paths, thus misleading the uninitiated. Thus, the first 10 paths of the Sefer Yetzirah are assigned to the 10 sephiroth, and the following 22 to the actual paths themselves. It will then be seen how the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet can be associated with the paths without discrepancy or overlapping. With them are also associated the 22 tarot trumps, the atus or abodes of Thoth. Concerning the tarot cards, there are 3 modern authorities of note: Dr. Incaus, or Pappas, the French writer, Mr. A.E. Waite, and the manuscript of MacGregor Mathers' Order of the Golden Dawn, which Crowley published upon his own authority. All 3 are different. Concerning the system Mr. White gives, he himself says there is another method known to initiates. By the way, if you don't know, A.E. White was the guy who made the popular tarot card deck that we use. He was the brain behind it. Also writer, and also Miss Pamela Coleman Smith. So when she's talking about the authorities, modern authorities on tarot, that's one of the reasons why I stick with the Rider-Waite Smith deck, because these are people who are initiated in the unwritten Kabbalah. A lot of people, they just look at the tarot and make pretty pictures and say, hey, I got a new tarot deck. But the more that you do that, the more you're walking away from the actual occult significance of it, and you're just writing, you're just creating a pretty card deck. You know, if you appreciate the aesthetics, then that's cool. But when it comes to tarot, I care more about the symbols and what it represents. So that's why I stick with the Rider White deck. Now I've got a unicorn deck also because it's cute, but I don't use it really for magic. Vince Cashmere, peace and greetings. Straight Panther says synchronicity and happy summer solstice, by the way. Yes, 93 likes, right? We're talking about Crowley, 93, 93. Cool beans. Like the video if you haven't. Or else we're going to re-evoke Crowley back into life. Then he's going to spill the beans some more. Mariah Magdalene says the Rider White deck is the only one I have right now. That's the only one I use, really. And like I said, mostly for the symbols. All three are different. Concerning the system Mr. Waite gave, he himself says there is another method known to initiates. There is reason to suppose that this is the method used by Mathers. Pappas disagrees with both of these writers in his method, but as his system does violence to many of the correspondences when placed upon the tree, the final test of all systems, and as the Mathers-Crawley system fits admirably, I think we may justly conclude that the latter is the correct traditional order, and I propose to adhere to it in these pages. As a note, when she says something does violence to the tree or does violence to the correspondences, what she's talking about is when people try to force things to fit, right? That's what she calls does violence. You'll see her say that at least 3 more times in this book, 2 more times in this book. An example of doing violence to the tree is when people try to attribute Pluto to Kether and like Uranus to Hakba and Neptune to Bina. That's called doing violence to the tree because you're literally trying to force something there that doesn't belong there. So you might see pictures on the internet that have like the planets associated with the spheres and then Pluto on Kether. That's not canon, right? That's called doing violence to the tree because you're trying to force something that don't belong. 1111. Hell yeah. It is currently 1111. Cosmic Chlorophyll says, what are oracle decks? Enlighten me, I don't have any tarot yet. Oracle decks serve as a symbol system for channeling information. I don't know what oracle decks are based on, but it's a symbol system. I assume there's a system in place. I don't think it's just a collection of pictures with words. I assume that there is some type of symbol system. Like with tarot, tarot is a system. It's not just a bunch of pretty cards. It's a system in place where each of the cards have a relationship with each other, and it's comprehensive and complete. No parts missing. I don't know what oracle decks are. I have one, but I don't use it. I got a unicorn oracle deck. Ooh. 13. The Kabbalists further placed upon the pass of the tree the signs of the zodiac, the planets, and the elements. If you've seen my videos talking about tarot, then you'll know that as well. Each of the tarot cards, like I said, it's a system, right? And what that means is it includes everything. So the tarot cards represent the zodiac, the planets, the elements. Now there are 12 signs, 7 planets, and 4 elements, making 23 symbols in all. Did you catch that? 12 signs, 7 planets, and 4 elements. Can you do the math? Right? 12 signs, 7 planets, 4 elements. That makes 23. But didn't we just say that there's 22 paths? Who can answer this mystery? Who can solve this mystery before I get to it? Right? Who can solve this? If there's only 22 paths and the major arcana relate to the 22 paths, if there's only 22, but she's saying that 12 plus 7 plus 4 makes 23, What's missing? What's missing? Are we missing one of the 12 signs? Are we missing one of the 4 elements? Are we missing one of the 7 planets? Because there's not 23 major arcana, so it can't be Doth. There's not 23 major arcana, there's 22. So that means something is subtracted. 12 plus 7 plus 4 makes 23. But something has to be subtracted. Justin Wallace, you got it right. Good job. Aset Ajah, long time no see. Peace, peace. But yeah, you got it right, Justin. Stuff Dog, you got it right as well. Malkuth. So, how are these to be fitted onto the 22 paths, right? There's 23 symbols. So how do they fit onto the 22 paths? Herein is another blind, right? But the solution is simple. Upon the physical plane, we are ourselves in the element of earth. Therefore, that symbol does not appear upon the paths which lead to the unseen, because obviously the earth is seen. So there are the 12 signs in the tarot cards. The 4 elements are in the tarot cards. Excuse me, let me reframe that. 3 elements are in the tarot cards. There's fire, there's air, and there's water, but there's no earth. There's also no planet Earth, because we are standing upon earth. So, upon the physical plane, we are ourselves in the element of earth. Therefore, that symbol does not appear upon the paths which lead to the unseen. Society Eject says one can go up from Malkuth, right? So you got to peep the secret language, the unspoken things. Remove this and we are left with 22 symbols, which fit accurately and correctly placed, are found to correspond perfectly with the tarot trumps, each elucidating the other in the most remarkable fashion and giving the keys to esoteric astrology and tarot divination. So look, the tarot is more than just finding out if somebody's cheating, who am I going to marry, am I pregnant? These are the keys of symbols that explain everything that can possibly happen in the universe. And if you understand the relationship between these keys, really, tarot is like a spread out version of the tree of life. It really is. 14. The essence of each path is to be found in the fact that it connects 2 of the sephirah. So when we're looking at the paths of the Kabbalah, a path is the connection between 2 sephirah. Remember earlier I talked about the exercise that you can do around the Yesod and the moon, right? We talked about laying out those cards in front of you, the 9s, the sun card, the temperance card, the star card, and the universe card. But notice what's also happening here. The universe card is the connection between Yesod and Malkuth. The sun card is the connection between Hod and Yesod. The star is a connection between Yesod and Netzach. The temperance card is a connection between Tifereth and Yesod. So because these paths are connections between 2 sephirah, that means they're going to contain essences from both of those states. Don't believe me, just watch. So the essence of each path is to be found in the fact that it connects 2 of the sephirah. And we can only understand its significance by taking into account the nature of the linked spheres upon the tree. But a sephirah cannot be understood upon a single plane. A sephirah cannot be understood upon a single plane. It has a 4-fold nature. The Kabbalists express this by saying that there are 4 worlds. All right, so every sephirah has 4 layers to it. 4 layers, also known as the 4 worlds, right? So here's what we got. Atziluth, the archetypal world, or the world of emanations, the divine world. Bria, the world of creation, also called Chrysia, the world of thrones. Yetzirah, the world of formation and of angels. Asaya, the world of action, the world of matter. C. McGregor Mathers, The Kabbalah Unveiled. So even though you might be talking about Malkuth, there's 4 layers. You could be talking about the Malkuth of Asaya, the Malkuth of Yetzirah, the Malkuth of Bria, or the Malkuth of Atziluth. And there's even more layers than that. Hypnotized minds. We Grow Natural says, sorry, I was in the middle of getting my son off Fortnite. Shoot, I'm about to get on Fortnite in a minute. 15. The 10 holy sephirah are held to have each its own point of contact with each of the 4 worlds of the Kabbalists. In the Atziluthic world, they manifest through the 10 holy names of God. In other words, the great unmanifest shadowed forth through the 3 negative veils of existence which hang behind the crown, declares itself in manifestation as 10 different aspects, which are represented by the different names used to denote deity in the Hebrew scriptures. These are variously rendered in the authorized version, and a knowledge of their true significance and the spheres to which they belong enable us to read many of the riddles of the Old Testament. Boom, the Old Testament. What she's saying here is that when you look at the world of Atziluth, what we're talking about is the divine unmanifest that we know of as God. And the way that it expresses itself within nature, consider my diagram here. Now consider Purusha being absolutely divine. Now we're talking about the world of Atziluth here. Those of y'all who know can follow along. If you don't, just pay attention because you'll still learn. When we're dealing with the world of Atziluth, same diagram, just a different angle. So in the world of Atziluth, when Purusha filters into Prakriti, what we're seeing are 10 layers. And those 10 layers have a specific name, right? The 10 holy names of the Sephirah. Those are the 10 manifestations of Purusha, of God, of the soul. They're going to be the most pristine and most divine manifestations. And there's 10 layers, right? So that's the world of Atziluth. So check this out. The different names are represented by the 10 different manifestations. Now let's talk about the world of Bria. In the Briatic world, the divine emanations are held to manifest through the 10 mighty archangels, whose names play such an important part in ceremonial magic. It is the worn and effaced remnants of these words of power that are the barbarous names of evocation of medieval magic, not one letter of which may be changed. In Revelation, it talks about you're not supposed to change one letter or it'll be cursed or whatever. It's not talking about the Bible because the whole Bible has been changed, right? It's been translated from so many different languages. So it's not talking about the Bible. What they're talking about when they say not one letter could be changed or adjusted, they're talking about the Hebrew names of the angels and the 10 God names. Because like she just said on the previous page, every Hebrew letter is also a number. And what a number is not an actual objective thing. A number is a concept and a representation of quantity and quality, right? You've never seen 5, but when you think of the number 5, you think of a concept or quality that can be expressed objectively, right? You can understand what 5 represents when you see 5 things. But without 5 things, it's pretty hard to visualize what 5 is. That's why things like the elements and the gunas are important, because we don't know what 3 is. 3 is nothing. 3 is a concept. But when you look at the 3 gunas, you have a more tangible concept to grasp, right? We don't know what 5 is. 5 isn't anything. It's a concept. But when you see that there are 5 elements, now you can start to see the relationship that 5 has with the physical plane. So numbers aren't a thing. They're an extremely abstract concept that we can only define through things that already exist. So what she's talking about here, in dealing with these, let me see here. So why this is so may readily be seen when we remember that in Hebrew, a letter is also a number, and the numbers of a name have an important significance. Boom. So in the world of Bria, what we're actually seeing are these different levels of manifestation, but instead of 10 names or titles of God, we're looking at these 10 arrangements of archangels. So think about a Russian doll. You got this doll, and you pull the cap off, and there's another one. You pull it off, and there's another one. You pull it off, and there's another one. That's really how this world of Bria represents these archangels. So on the very outside shell, you've got Metatron. But if you zoom into Metatron, you've got Raziel. You zoom in, you've got Zafkiel, right? And there's a assumed layer of Masukiel, but he's not really there. And then Zadkiel, Kamael, Mikael, Uriel, Raphael, Gabriel, and then finally Sandalphon at the very center. Now Sandalphon, we'll find, is actually the feet of Metatron. So what we see is this is all one thing, but experienced through different levels. So 17. In the Yetziratic world, the divine emanations manifest not through a single being, but through different types of beings, which are called the angelic hosts, or the choirs. So in the Yetziratic world, from our angle of being people, we see all these different angels doing all these different things in the spiritual plane. But in truth, they're like body parts of God. So God being so vast, soul being so incomprehensible, when we experience it from our level, it appears to be so many different things. But if we zoom out, we'll see we're actually seeing the tentacles of one massive creature. So that's how it goes with working with angels, right? While each one specifically represents a specific aspect, if you follow that trail upward, you're going to find that they all actually connect to one massive body. Tree Marie says, y'all ever see those old paintings of jawbreaker type images? Yeah. Layers within layers. Or kind of like when they show a cross section of Earth, and they'll show like the crust, and then like the mantle, and like the core. What were they really trying to show us subconsciously? '18. The Asiatic world is not, strictly speaking, the world of matter when viewed from the Sephirotic standpoint, right? But rather the lower astral and etheric planes, which together form the background of matter. So even when she's talking about Asaya, she isn't talking about the physical world. The physical world is kind of like whatever. It's an afterthought. But since we live here, we don't think of it as an afterthought. We think the physical world is the end all be all. But what she's talking about, the Asiatic world, this is the world of matter viewed from the Sephirotic standpoint. This is the lower astral and the etheric plane. Asaya is the etheric plane and the lower astral. Nothing new happens in the physical plane. Nothing new is created on the physical plane. The activity happens in the astral and the etheric, and the result happens in the physical plane. You get that? So if you're trying to change things, you're not going to do it purely from the physical. It has to be done through the astral or the etheric or higher. Upon the physical plane, the divine emanations manifest through what may not be inaptly called the 10 mundane chakras, likening these centers of manifestation to the centers that exist in the human body, an exact analogy. So looking at the tree of life from the Asiatic world, you're going to perceive it as the 10 chakras. So just like you don't look at one of your chakras and say, this is me, you know that all 10 of them represent your energy body. That's the same thing dealing with the 10 different angels, the 10 different archangels, the 10 different holy names of God. They represent different pieces of one massive entity. The same thing with the solar system. The same thing with the solar system. These chakras are the premium mobile, or first swirlings, the sphere of the zodiac, the 7 planets, and the elements taken together, 10 in all. Yeah, by the way, let's see, 7, 8, 9, 10. 7, 8, 9, 10. So you got the 7 planets, that's 7. You got the premium mobile, that's 8. The sphere of the zodiac, that's 9. And the elements, that's 10. The elements represent Malkuth. The 7 planets represent Yesod, Hod, Netzach, Tifereth, Geburah, and Chesed. The sphere of the zodiac is represented by Chokmah, and then, and also Bina is one of the planets. The Chokmah is the zodiac, and then the first swirlings is Kether. 19. It will be seen from the foregoing that each sephirah will therefore consist, firstly, of its mundane chakra, secondly, of an angelic host of beings, devas or archons. Don't leave, don't get scared. I know I said archons, but don't get scared, don't leave yet. It will be seen from the foregoing that each sephirah will consist, firstly, of a mundane chakra, which is either going to be the elements, one of the planets, the stars of the zodiac, or the first swirling Kether. Secondly, of an angelic host of beings, devas or archons, right? A lot of angels. Principalities or powers according to the terminology used, right? So when you're scared of archons, you're also scared of the devas of India. You're also scared of principalities, powers, and angels, right? Thirdly, an archangelic consciousness or a throne, world of Bria. And then fourthly, a special aspect of the deity, that's the world of Atziluth. God as he is in his entirety, being hidden behind negative veils of existence. Hmm. 20. The sephirah may justly be considered macrocosmic, and the paths microcosmic. For the sephirah, connected as they sometimes are in old diagrams by a flash of lightning, 777, which is often depicted as hilted like a fiery sword, represents the successive divine emanations which constitute creative evolution, whereas the paths represent the successive stages of the unfolding of cosmic realization in human consciousness. So the sephirah, the spheres, she says here, can be considered macrocosmic. The spheres can be considered macrocosmic. For reference, take a look at Tatwashuti, the macrocosm. That's the spheres. She says the paths are microcosmic. Right? Now for the sephirah, the macrocosm, you see that lightning flash of 777 coming down. That's the macrocosm. And then the paths themselves, the microcosm, that represents the stages of unfolding of cosmic realization in the human consciousness, the evolution. In old pictures, a serpent is often depicted as twined about the boughs of the tree. Have you guys seen that picture? The picture of the tree of life, and then you've got that 777 sword coming down, but you also have the serpent climbing back up the tree. I'm sure you guys have seen that image before. But just like she said, the lightning flash that comes down represents the macrocosm, and it relates mainly to the sephirah. The serpent climbing back up relates to the paths, and that deals with the microcosm, the personal, individual human experience, the ego. Wyatt B says, Travis, you're the boy, dude. We appreciate you taking your time to read and explain this to us. My pleasure, my friend. If you guys haven't seen that symbol, well, here it is. Right, here it is. Here's, you see the 777 light. See, she said the sword is hilted. That's what that means. It's got a hilt on it. You got to grab it with that handle. And it represents the sephirah. 7, 7, 7. Right? And notice how it touches all the sephirah, touches the spheres. That's the path downward, right? But notice the serpent, it's going back upward, and it's not worried about the sephirah. It's crossing the paths. You see that? Now, a curious thing that's happening is the lightning flash that touches the sephirah are also touching certain paths. But notice the serpent doesn't touch those paths. It goes under those paths, right? So all 32 paths are touched, going down and coming back up, right? Kundalini can be seen as a lightning flash and a fiery serpent, right? So see the lightning flash comes through this sphere, this path, and this sphere. Notice this, and then this path. Notice the serpent crosses over this and touches that one and goes across here, right? Excuse me. She goes under the paths that are not crossed by the lightning bolt, as you can see. In other words, this is what Dion Fortune is talking about. The serpent upon the tree of life. In case anybody was too shy to say, I've never seen that image. Don't be shy, speak up, or forever hold your peace. Sakura Key Nexus says, pulling the sword from the stone. Exactly. All right, let's keep going. Let's keep going. We're at a good, steady pace. So, in old pictures, a serpent is often depicted as twined about the boughs of the tree. This is the serpent Nehushtan, who holdeth his tail in his mouth. Uh-oh. Y'all talking about the Ouroboros? The symbol of wisdom and initiation. The coils of the serpent, when correctly arranged upon the tree, cross each one of the paths in succession and swerve to indicate the order in which they should be numbered. There's a secret there. Look at how the serpent crosses these paths, and that represents the order which those paths should be crossed, or which they should be numbered. With the help of this glyph, then, it is a simple matter to arrange all the tables of symbols in their correct positions upon the tree, granted that the symbols are given in their correct order in the tables. In certain modern books which rank as authorities upon the subject, the correct order is not given, the writers apparently holding that this should not be revealed to the uninitiated. But as this order is given correctly in certain older books, and for the matter of that, in the Bible itself and the Kabbalistic literature, there seems to me no point in deliberately misleading students with spurious information. To refuse to divulge anything may be justifiable, but how is it possible to justify the handling of misleading statements? How is it possible to justify the handling on of misleading statements? No one is going to be persecuted nowadays for their studies in unorthodox sciences. So there can be put one purpose in withholding teaching. So there can be but one purpose in withholding teaching that relates solely to the theory of the universe and the philosophy arising therefrom, and in no way to the methods of practical magic. And that purpose is to retain a monopoly of the knowledge which confers prestige, if not power. In other words, no one's being persecuted today for learning about the occult. So if anyone is still withholding knowledge and twisting knowledge and stuff like that, it's not the only reason that exists today to do that is to retain a monopoly of knowledge and power, to hold it for yourself selfishly, or to try to hold on to something that seems like power or prestige or glory. So if people are holding back knowledge from you nowadays about this stuff, it's because they're trying to stay on top of you. They want to retain that feeling of superiority. But there's no good reason to withhold this information anymore. 21. For my part, I believe that, and imagine that, my uncle, who is a pastor, who I quote frequently, said something really great when I lived with him. He said that if you're no good without it, you're no good with it. In other words, if somebody uses the occult and their knowledge and all this stuff as something to stand on to prove that they're better than other people, if that's their authority, if that's their power, yes, I know the secrets of the occult and that's why I'm better than you, right? Pay me to learn the secrets, right? Or I don't have to give it to you. That's somebody who's no good without those secrets, which means that they're no good in the first place. Just something to remember. If you're no good without it, you're no good with it. Keep that in mind. That includes people who base their superiority on the things that they own. They think that they're big shots and super important because of money, cars, clothes, social media shit, whatever. You're dealing with someone who's very insecure. "21. For my part, I believe that this selfishness and exclusiveness is the bane of the occult movement rather than its safeguard." In other words, stay away from those kind of people. If you want, you can do what you want. But I don't have time to waste on people like that. I'm trying to go where the information is. You feel me? I don't care what the person looks like. I don't care what they're interested in. Give me the knowledge. "It is the old sin of retaining the knowledge of God in the hands of a priesthood and denying it to all outside the sacred clan. Justifiable enough when the people were savages, but unjustifiable in the case of the modern student. For when all is said and done, the desired information can be worked out from existing literature by those who care to take the trouble, or purchased plainly set forth by those who can afford high prices for books now rare. Surely the possession of ample time and ample cash should not be the test of the fitness to obtain the sacred wisdom." In other words, there's no point in holding this information back. They used to do that in the past, where a secret priesthood would keep the holy information to themselves so that the savages outside of their system wouldn't get it, right? "We got to keep the information from them because they're going to use it against us, y'all." No, that's scarcity thinking. That's fearful thinking. Because by now, as you can see, there's plenty of books written on this information that anybody with a brain and some time can figure out. So there's no point in hiding it or holding it, right? "Y'all, we can't be talking about this stuff on YouTube because the enemy's gonna get a hold of it and they're gonna use it against us." Come on, man. More than likely, the people you're scared of know more than you about this information. And likewise, it's also not only can you just get these books, but also you can pay somebody to teach you this information, or you could buy the expensive books yourselves. And what she's saying is the mark of a spiritual student and possessing this information, it shouldn't be limited to being able to afford a book or afford a class. All the information is out here. 22. "No doubt I shall expose myself to a shower of abuse from the self-constituted guardians of this knowledge who may hold that their precious secrets have been betrayed. To this I reply that I am not betraying anything that is secret, but collecting that which has already been given to the world and is of a simple and well-known nature. When I first had access to certain manuscripts, I believed them to be secret and unknown to the world at large. But a wider acquaintance with occult literature has revealed to me that the information is to be found scattered broadcast through it. Much, in fact, to which the initiate is sworn to secrecy has been published by Mathers and Wynne Westcott themselves, and as recently as 1926, a new edition of Mathers' work on the Qabalah was brought out under the editorship of his widow, who may be assumed to have known his wishes. And in that work will be found most of the tables that I give in these pages. As these catalogs of beings were originally given to the world by Isaiah, Ezekiel, and various medieval rabbis, it may justly be held that the copyright in them has lapsed owing to the passage of time. In any case, such ownership as there may be in these ideas is vested in the original author and not in any subsequent commentator, and that author, according to the Qabalah itself, is the Archangel Metatron. Uh-oh. Who remembers reading about Metatron from the Ladder of Lights? Tree Marie says, all the information is within. Yes, ma'am. 23. Much that was once common knowledge has been gathered up and confined under the initiate's oath of secrecy. It is Crowley's jibe at his teachers that they bound him to secrecy with terrible oaths and then confided the Hebrew alphabet to his safekeeping. 24. The philosophy of the Kabbalah is the esotericism of the West. In it, we find such a cosmogony as is found in the stanzas of Dizan, which were the basis of Madame Blavatsky's work. Herein, she found the framework of traditional doctrine, which she expounded in her great book, The Secret Doctrine. This Kabbalistic cosmogony is the Christian gnosis. Without it, we have an incomplete system in our religion. And it is this incomplete system which has been the weakness of Christianity. The early fathers, in the homely metaphor, threw away the baby with the bathwater. A very cursory acquaintance with the Kabbalah serves to show that here we have the essential keys to the riddles of Scripture in general and prophetic books. In particular, is there any good reason why initiates of the present day should put all this knowledge into a secret box and sit upon the lid? If they consider that I am wrong to give accurate information upon matters which they consider their private reserve, I reply that this is a free country and they are entitled to their own opinion. Listen at Dion. If you got beef with me, take it up with the Constitution. It's a free country. James Brown said, I got soul and I'm super bad. Lance Benefeld has a synchronicity with Metatron. Whoo! Yeah, baby. I like it like that. I like it like that. I like it like that. Got soul. I got soul. Like it like that. I like it like that. I like it like that. I like it like that. Stuff Dog 69 says, what's up on reading The Secret Doctrine, Trav? Man. Listen here. If it took 6 months to prepare for the reading of Mystical Kabbalah, it will take an entire year plus to prepare for the reading. Ooh, look at that. It'll take an entire year to prepare for the reading of The Secret Doctrine, right? This here ain't no joke. Some of the most profound books that I have are actually written by women. It's pretty cool. Look at those serious eyes, man. The Secret Doctrine. Yeah, this is definitely going to take some... And also, she's from a different system than the authors that we've been studying. So it really would take some more background work. We'd have to study Ledbetter. We'd have to study A.E. Powell. We'd have to study Besant and Bailey. But just diving into this, y'all would probably stop watching after the first couple videos. I'm gonna just keep it real. Because that's already happened with Initiation to Hermetics and even this book. The Secret Doctrine. But I tell you what I would be more confident in reading to everyone, I would say, would actually be the Cosmic Doctrine, which is equally, if not even more deep. And this, when she wrote this, it was a little too much. So she had to water it down and write Mystical Kabbalah. This is by Dion Fortune also. So if you think Mystical Kabbalah is heavy, this right here, man, you'll be laying in bed with your eyes wide open thinking about what happened in this book. Will we go over this one? Who knows? Maybe. Maybe. I don't know. I think we could go through this one. Maybe a little bit later. Maybe a little bit later. Because I definitely never heard anybody talk about the cosmic doctrine. Talk about the secret doctrine, but y'all don't talk about the cosmic doctrine. Cosmic Chlorophyll says, so how often are you reading the Mystical Kabbalah live? Now, there are some questions that I cannot answer because you will find out as soon as I find out. But I will try my best to be as frequent as possible. I don't want to take too long reading this book. But, you know, we're going to go again tomorrow night if that's what you're asking. Tomorrow night. I'm not reading on Thursdays and I'm not reading on Sundays. That's a fact. But I will do everything I can to try to plan in advance. Sometimes advance is 5 minutes before. Sometimes advance is 5 hours before. But right now, I'm letting you know that we will be doing this again tomorrow night at 8 p.m. and definitely not on Thursday. So, like I said, throughout the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, those are all game. But the consistent thing will be 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock is the time that I sit down and get this going. Tree Marie says the power of the yoni. Yes, ma'am. But never forget the relationship. The yoni is excited into action by the lingam. Well, I wonder what kind of lingam. No. Oh, I guess I'll say. I wonder what kind of lingam excited Miss Blavatsky. Stuffed Dog says, I know it ain't no joke. She talks about the root races and shit. Shit is cool. Yes, yes. Court Seeing, welcome to the end of the show. Wyatt B says, you know, we could all tap into the information in all of these books from a nice big cup of ayahuasca. You're absolutely right. And a 12-year-old could tap into all this information by watching these videos, but just because they hear it doesn't mean they'll retain it. It'll slip right through all the lack of understanding in their mind. So yeah, you can trip balls and see the secrets of the universe, but you're not going to understand them. You're not going to be able to hold them. I don't know if you've ever done a trip before, but there's a frustrating feeling of seeing the wonderful beauty of existence, and then you get sober again and you can't put it into words because you don't have containers for it. That's what's so wonderful about the Tree of Life, is that it creates for you a container to place spiritual concepts. You dig? Matthew Watson says, what does HP mean? Is H.P. Lovecraft related to her? HP stands for Helena Petrova. Helena Petrova Blavatsky. She's Eastern European. So she's got one of those Eastern European names. Sakura says, see y'all mañana at 8 p.m. Eastern. Yes, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Stuffed Dog says, no lingam excited her. She left hers and didn't come back. Hey. Mariah says, true, I tripped and received a lot of information, but I didn't understand it. That's how it goes. All right, well, this is the end of the party. It was a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I certainly did. As always. As always, always. For sure, for sure. Wonderful experience. And hopefully this is information. Look, this is what I said also. If there's a lot of stuff in here that you didn't understand, went over your head, whatever, trust and believe that the information goes into your unconscious mind and you will be processing it over time. This is how the mind works. You unlock information through learning. The information's already there. But as you learn these concepts, it serves to unlock the information that's already present. So when you sleep, when you meditate, when you're just doing whatever, when you're cooking, when you're dancing, when you're, whatever else, this information starts to synthesize, starts to blend. Dots begin to connect. Patterns begin to reveal themselves. And what you'll come to find is that you're going to start understanding this information, and it's going to come like a flash of lightning. It's going to be like a light bulb that pops out. You get what I'm saying? This is how the unconscious mind works. Trust your unconscious and allow yourself to be as great as your genetic potential will allow you to be. Allow yourself to be as great as your soul potential will allow you to be. All right? So don't worry, don't fret. Don't be like, "Oh, I don't get it. What's a prakriti?" No, it'll make sense. Allow it to make sense. Allow yourself to make sense of this stuff. Cosmic Chlorophyll says, so remember when you were saying when you don't remember your dreams, it's because you haven't seen it yet in the physical. It's weird, the dreams I don't remember, I get them as deja vu in the waking life. Boom, there's your deja vu, right? Because you'll dream it and it's not familiar to you. But the moment it becomes familiar, you're like, oh, deja vu. Simple. I love it. Look at what you figured out. That's what I'm talking about, man. When you hear something, see, look, and I said that hours ago, yet it just clicked for you. That's how this stuff works. Get the information, listen to the audiobook, play the stuff while you're sleeping, right? You're not learning, you're educating yourself. The difference is educate comes from the Latin word educo, which we have as educe, which is to pull out from within. Learning versus education. Educate yourself. Listen to this stuff while you sleep. Get the audiobook while you're driving to work. Let it play. Have the symbols on your desk. Have the symbols on around your wall, right? Put the Sri Yantra up, even if you don't understand what it means, right? Put the Qabalah tree of life up, even if you don't understand what it means. Because all learning is unconscious. All learning is unconscious. Damn near everything you do is unconscious. All right. Mr. Higglesworth says, sometimes it takes me a couple readings or I'll be walking down the street and bam, right? And we talked about Tesla. There's plenty of geniuses. I don't remember which book it was. I wish I did. But basically they were saying that a lot of these geniuses, when they had their breakthrough, we're stalking the wild pendulum. A lot of these geniuses, when they have their ideas, they're not sitting down trying to think of it. Oh, I've got to create this invention. No, they're taking a walk, they're taking a shower, they're on the toilet, they're doing something that has nothing to do with anything, and the information pops up. Because all the time their unconscious mind has been figuring it out, synthesizing it, working on it, putting it together. All learning is unconscious. Atropa says, see you, Trav, and I'll be reading on my own too. Do that. And hell, if nobody's around, read it out loud. One of the perks of me doing this is that I get to read it out loud. So my ears actually get to hear it. My body actually gets to vibrate with this information. So you don't do that when you're reading silently. But when you read it out loud, you're educating your soul. You're educating your body. Look at what I said. You're educating your body, as in the body is its own entity, and you're pulling out from it information. You're reminding your body. That's why you talk to yourself. That's why it's important to be aware of what kind of self-talk you have. If you're walking around talking about, oh, I ain't shit, I ain't never gonna be shit, man, I always fuck stuff up. No, look at what you're telling your body. Look at what you're educing from yourself. No, speak greatness into your body. Speak greatness. Look in the mirror and actually out loud talk. You see how this works? Yoel Yahoo asks, do you have a mentor? Well, I just graduated mentors. Used to be Lucifer. Now I don't know what these group of people are called. Some kind of brotherhood. I have a business mentor. Dreamery says walking meditations. Yes, daily and nightly. Obviously, I taste delicious. Okay, so that's that. Time to go. Okay. All right, so logging off now. Stay awesome, stay wonderful. See you tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Remember, learning is unconscious, education is unconscious, and speak great things into your life. This is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. I love you guys. I appreciate you all being here. Peace.